Welcome to my channel, where mysteries unfold, strange tales come to life, and the unexplained takes center stage. Here, we dive deep into eerie legends, unsolved cases, and supernatural phenomena that defy logic. Are you ready to step into the unknown? Brace yourself, keep an open mind, and join us as we uncover the world's greatest mysteries. Please listen to the story Message Through the Board. This story happened in 2014 in Marietta, California. I worked at a grocery store. A couple of my co-workers had gone to this old mining town, near Joshua Tree then, to these old gold mines. They brought a Ouija board with them and were able to communicate with some miners that had passed in the area. At the time, I was very skeptical about these kinds of things. I was like, oh, if you guys are ever gonna do it again, I'd be really interested to see what that's like and experience that for myself. A couple weeks later, one of the girls that owned the Ouija board invited me to go with her to her grandmother's grave. We went to the cemetery around sunset and set up a blanket. Just a nice little area on top of her grave. The girl that's grandmother's grave we were at, LED the whole thing. Me and one other girl were there as well. There were 3 of us total. We are sitting there. We all 3 had our fingers on the planchette. I had mine barely touching it, hovering it, 'cause I'm skeptical. We sign on the Ouija board. We go to say hello. That's what she told us we're supposed to do. You sign on, we go to say hello. She starts asking questions. Is there anyone here with us? We didn't really get any responses. The planche kept moving from T and to U. T to U. It kept going back and forth very slowly. That was the only response we got the whole time. We sat there for 30 minutes. Maybe an hour, just seeing if anything else would happen. Nothing else happened, so we gathered up our gear. They had the idea to go to this, what is referred to as the Haunted Mill. That's in Marietta. It's a spooky place that teenagers go at night, just to get spooked out. I had been a couple times to drive by, but they were like, let's go do the Ouija board over there. They thought we'd get some sort of response. We go over to the mill. It's pitch black out. The mill had been vandalized and broken into a lot over the years. There was a chain link fence and barbed wire on the top. We didn't bother going inside of it, but we thought just merely being in its vicinity was enough. We set up the Ouija board and a little blanket across the street. There was a dirt field across the street. It was just us. Dirt field and the mill. All 3 of us had her finger on the planche. We sign on to say hello. The girl who was leading asked if there was anybody with us. This time, the planche went to yes. She asked a few other questions. One of them was, what is your name? It started to spell my grandfather's name, which is not a common name in the States. The hairs on the back of my neck were standing up, and it started to spell my last name. My last name is Dutch and very hard to spell. Even people that have known me for years have a hard time spelling my last name. I immediately was going into fight or fight mode. I was really scared, I figured. The girls I was with probably didn't know my grandfather's name. At first, I thought they were pulling a prank on me or something. I looked at them and was like, oh, this is my grandfather's name that it just spelled. My friend continued to ask questions. She said, do you have something that you want to say to Molly? It went to yes again. What's your message from Molly? It spelled Getready. I said, get ready. She said, for what? It spelled D-E, a T-H death. I immediately was having an out-of-body experience. We signed off. My 2 friends were very scared. They grabbed their stuff, ran off to their car. I had been sitting crisscross, applesauce the whole time. I went to stand up. My legs were numb. I fell into this ditch that was there. I lost my car keys. Having a panic attack, I look up and my friends are at their cars. They're getting ready to go. I couldn't find my car keys, so I pull my phone out, get my flashlight. I'm looking for my keys. I finally find them. I run into my car and drive off and don't look back. We let each other know when we got home. Over the next couple of weeks, we were checking in with each other a lot to see how everyone was feeling. We were all really freaked out by it. In the months after that, even years, I have asked them repeatedly if they've ever had another experience like that, or if they were possibly playing a prank on me, and they've never owned up to it if they were. But that's something that has scared me. It's been almost 10 years. It's still something that I think about. From what I experienced, I don't think either of them messed with a Ouija board. Again, after that, the logical side of me wants to say that they were messing with me, but I think it would have been really hard for them to find my Dutch grandfather's name somewhere, and to know that that's something that would scare me. I went in with the title of a skeptic, and I feel like maybe I was targeted because of that. I would say, know what you're getting yourself into. Listen to stories like these before you do something like that. I haven't been to that specific area because I don't live there any longer, but I in general like abandoned places, spooky places. I actually told my dad the story within the last couple years. The grandfather mentioned in the story is my dad's dad. I never told him. I didn't want him to have a weird memory of his dad after hearing it, but I wanted to share it with him. He adamantly is like, my dad would never try to scare you like that, and would never tell you to get ready for death in a negative, scary way. If he had said that, he would have meant it, as in, live your life to the fullest. Always prepare, be prepared. That you don't always have the promise of tomorrow. That's giving me a piece about the story too. I don't think it was my grandfather. I never did research into this because I'm too scared. But one of my friends that I experienced this with, she had done some research into demons and spirits. She said there is a demon that will imitate relatives, with repeating letters, like we had experienced at the cemetery. If that's the case, I'm really glad we signed off when we did, and didn't do it again. This experience just gave me a really well-rounded view of this kind of thing. I don't consider myself a skeptic or a full believer. I put it into the category of something unexplained, something I might never know the answer to. Don't leave just yet. We have 3 stories today. Have you listened to them yet? They're up and available now as separate episodes. You can share your own story with me over on scarystory.com for a chance to have it featured on an upcoming episode, and to listen ad-free. Try out Scary Plus over on scaryplus.com. Completely free for 14 days. You can also find the button somewhere on your app. Right now. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story The Thing at the Top of the Stairs. In 2017 is when I was living with my parents, right before I joined the Navy. I was 18 around the time. This was my first experience with sleep paralysis. And the hag, I was in my bedroom. It was pitch black. The only illuminating light that I had was from the window. With sleep paralysis, your eyes are open, but your body can't move. I was looking at the bottom of my bed. I could see this bright green light. It kind of looked like toxic waste, like in a movie. That's kind of the color it was. I was looking at it really intensely, and I still couldn't move. I had like the mumbles, like trying to get out words like help, because I couldn't move. This was my first time ever experiencing this. So this was so different. I could see that this girl, or this woman, started to form. She had her fingers up on top of her mouth, and I could see her knuckles but not her fingers. She was laughing. I could feel my body gain a little bit of life, and I just kept rocking. Then I finally jumped up, because I was so mad. I was like, who's in my house when I got up to her? She dissipate. That was my, first experience ever with the so-called hag. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't know really what it was. My dad was always the kind of guy. Ghosts aren't real, but he had a very big understanding of what the supernatural, as I could always understand. We had cousins who had played with the Ouija board. Back in the 80s, they were asking it questions. They asked the question, when are we going to die? The Ouija board gave them a date. The date the Ouija board gave them. They crash into a semi. Another semi crash in the back of them and sandwich the car. My dad, ever since that happened, he doesn't like to talk about the paranormal. He knows it's there. He doesn't want to ever talk about it. It was a very taboo subject growing up. Me and my sisters, we would talk about it sometimes, but not like that. My sister, she traced back our lineage. There's some witchcraft throughout there. We've never really gotten into anything like that in 2019. I met my husband. We had started dating. We both got stationed up in Washington when we were moving up there. He was like, hey, I'm gonna get a house with our friends. You wanna come move in? So we got this house. It was in the woods, pretty much. It was really nice. Had a really big backyard. The vibe of the house was always weird. It always felt like somebody was in there watching you. Do you hear the creaks? There is one night I remember I woke up. Our bed was against one wall, and we had a walk-in closet. And then the bathroom was right next to it. The bathroom had this white mist coming out of it. It was wrapping over my husband. I looked at it, and I thought it was so weird. There's no fog outside, there's no windows open, there's no shower on, we don't even have a humidifier in the room. I was like, I have to be dreaming, but I could see it moving. It was moving towards me. I just said, I'm gonna go to sleep. I don't want to wake him up. He's gonna just shrug it off. He's half asleep. The next day, I did tell him, I said, hey, last night there was this mist over you, and I don't know what is going on. I've never seen this before. I went into the little town that we had to. This magic shop, I need to get some sage. The white sage so I can cleanse my house. And I need something for a protection crystal. They given me some type of protection crystal. The lady was like, oh, you're in the military? I said, yes. And she said, well, because you're around all these bases, that these bases bring a lot of negative energy. You bring that home with you. I'd gotten these crystals, so you sleep with them under your pillow, and you should not feel anything. I was pretty much good after that. Didn't have any experiences. But then, me and my husband were still married, but he had gotten orders to San Francisco. And my command moved. This was right when COVID happened. I was in this apartment for 8 months until we moved. I can remember. The second time I had my experience with the hag, my husband was able to come down. They had lifted up the restrictions. We were in bed one night. I woke up. I had a bright white light. This time it was on the side of my face. I felt her hands and her feet crawling across the bed, like it felt like I liked tons. Every time they would hit, I couldn't move. She was on top of my chest. She put all of her weight on. I could hear this loud, a vacuum-like sucking sound with it. It felt like my soul was being sucked out of my body. I literally felt like my life was flashing before my eyes. I don't even remember falling to sleep back after that. I just remember I can still see everything and feel the weight on my chest. The hair was all in my face. I couldn't even see her face, but I could see her then. I could see teeth. I could see white mist from me flowing into her. And I was like, this is so weird. That was my second experience with her. We only lived there for a couple months, because I always felt that apartment had a really bad vibe. The way my room was set up was, I had this big vanity next to the bathroom. After that, I could not sleep near the mirror. There's this big superstition. Don't sleep next to mirrors. It's a portal, you know. I had to move my bed. I really didn't have a way because I had the vanity. And then my closet doors were. Those closet doors that had mirrors on them. There wasn't much I could do. And I don't like to sleep with the doors open, that I've always feel like someone's looking in. And especially in that apartment, I always felt like somebody was looking in on me. Around the time I would take my body, and I would make a triangle with a pillow over my head. So if I woke up, I wouldn't see something directly. If there was somebody in the room, or if some spirit was watching me. I had went on deployment. My husband had moved into a new house, in a military housing. I had got back from deployment in February 2022. Things were good. That's when I started to notice a month or so after. The house had a kind of a weird vibe to it. It's right next to here, next to all these bases. Military bases, they bring a lot of negative energy. It's not anything intentional. It just happens. I always felt at the top of our stairs, there was this dark mist. But it's nothing I've ever seen, like project or actually see form. But that's the only way I can feel. I can describe it's like this really dark mist. And it's sad and angry. Sean's story continues right after this stay with us. I wasn't the only one I had talked to my friend. She had felt that too. I would always feel eyes on me in the house. But it wasn't like I don't want you here. It was like I need help in a way. But then there's also, sometimes there's that angry presence. Like I really don't want you here. But I can't tell you to leave. After so long, I was just like, whatever. I kept doing the pillow thing. I didn't want to see anything. I didn't even like being in the house by myself. I started hanging out with my best friend. Me and her, I'm talking. We were doing almost every day together. When we'd have people over, drinks would be flowing and we'd like, hey, no one's allowed to drive home, so she would stay over a lot. There was one night we had went out and came back. She was there sleeping on the couch. It's a recliner set, everything. There's no way she can fall off of this, unless she actually threw herself off. She says that someone pulls her. Full force pulls her. She's the only one downstairs. It's just her. She woke up. She looked around, thinking that someone's here. There's no one there. And she was like, I turned on the TV. I sat there until 5 o'clock in the morning. And I left immediately. She was so scared. Not too long after that, we had more people over. One night, we're all sitting on the couch. It's me and the two of our other friends. Everybody had already went to bed. Him and the doorbell starts ringing. My dog's going crazy. The doorbell start ringing. I look outside. There's no one there. It's weird. My husband comes downstairs. He opens up the door. This is probably the worst thing he could have done. I think he let something in when he opened that door. He walks out, looks around. There's no one there. So going back, goes to sleep, everything's fine. Not too long after that, stuff starts moving around our house too. We had this like electric fly swatter. You get flies like crazy for some weird reason. It's probably just the heat. I remember there was one time I'm home alone by myself, sitting in the living room. It's a direct, open shot, as you can see from where our key rack is at, where that's hanging to the living room. You can see it directly. That thing is swinging back and forth, like someone had pushed it. I had not went in there at all that morning. I'm sitting there confused. No one else is home with me. I'm just watching it. I've recorded it and sent it to our group chat. I said, guys, I'm the only one home. I haven't even been in the kitchen this morning. Look at this. Everybody's like, oh, there's ghosts in the house. Me had been getting this feeling. The thing at the top of the stairs. Finally, I had myself was asking neighbors about, like, stuff that's happened around. The way the neighborhood is set up. It's a big courtyard in the middle. 4 streets surrounding each other. On the other side of the courtyard, there was a man. He had murdered his wife, and he had left. I've heard 2 sets of the stories, but the one I read online, it said that he had kept her in a deep freezer. For 2 years, he had said that she went missing. There was an incident in the courtyard where she had ran outside and said that she was cutting herself or something. That's what he was saying. These 2 years goes by everybody's what? Like, where is she? They're asking him, where did she goes? Like, I think she just ran off. The day he's supposed to move out and move across the country. Her body's found. He threw her body in the canal. The police had found her. They knew who she was because she'd been missing. They come to his house and everything. And they're like, hey, we found your wife. He already has a whole new fiancé and everything. They're about to move. He goes, oh, that's crazy. Come to find out, he was the one who did it. They expedited him back here when all that had happened. But it's not just one property. All the properties are connected with each other, especially this courtyard, is what keeps everybody connected to. I feel like maybe it was her spirit, still asking for help in a way, or just being angry that she can't leave. She's stuck there. Even till the day that we had moved out. We moved out in November of 2023. I still felt really, awkward and weird being in there by myself. I've just felt the heaviness of sadness and anger, of not wanting to be there and needing the help. I don't think anybody else felt that, but my friend, she was the only one that, when I spoke to her about this yesterday, she was like, no, I felt that too at the top of your stairs. She said, I didn't like ever going upstairs unless you were up there, because I felt like something was up there. It's crazy I'm the only one that felt like that, but that was really that. Now we've moved to the other side, in this brand new built place. I don't really get the vibe that something is here, or anything like that, but it doesn't take long for something to show itself. So I've always been a believer, ever since I've experienced more and more and more. It makes me start to realize, there's more. There's more things out there. The case Sean mentioned is true and verifiable. The victim's name is Elizabeth Rick Sullivan, who had been missing in 2014. And for 2 years, nobody knew of her whereabouts. when her body was found in the San Diego Bay. Investigators discovered that she had been stored in a freezer for 2 years. And even though we don't cover this specific case on our new show called Murders, you can find other terrifying cases of what humans are truly capable of. You can find Murders on your podcast app right now. To share your own story on this podcast, go to TrueScaryStory.com. The link is in the description of this episode to get ad-free stories and to support the show. Check out scaryplus.com. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story encounters at the family home in the Philippines when I was 8. My grandparents built the house during the war. After it was built, my parents lived there. We were there until I was 16. The house was so huge and old. We have 2 floors, 2 living rooms, one downstairs and one upstairs, and we had a huge staircase. I would constantly get creeped out by the staircase. Even during the daytime, my mom would have helpers. We call them angels back where I'm from. Here in Canada, they're called maids. None of them would last. They would complain that in the middle of the night. They would hear noises in the kitchen. They would check up on it, thinking someone was there. None of them lasted long, and my mom didn't know what to do. She tried blessing the house, have a priest come there every other month blessing it. Nothing worked. My dad went off to work off country. My mom would work graveyard shifts. It was just me and my 6 siblings. I would constantly encounter a child. I think it was a boy I didn't know back then. I was certain it was a child. One time I was walking up the stairs. It was at 10 p.m. when I was in the middle of the stairs. I heard someone calling me. Not by my name, but it was calling me like that. It was a child's voice. I froze up in the middle of the stairs. I really hated sleeping in my room. It was huge. I felt like someone was watching me, especially during nighttime. Every time my mom told me, "Oh, let's all sleep in the living room," I was so happy about it, I went to my room. I share my room with my 2 other sisters. The bunk bed where I share with my sister was on the opposite side of the room. I sleep on top and she sleeps on the bottom. My eldest sister's bed, Nina, it was also on the other side. I grabbed my sister's bed, pulled it up. As soon as I turned around to face the door, I saw a child curled up on my second elder sister's bed. The bottom one, I froze there staring at it. It was black. It was curled up facing me, but I couldn't see the face. He was looking at his knees. I ran out crying to my mom as saying, "There's a kid on Alyssa's bed. Please do something about it." They all went to my room. They didn't see anything. There was this other time. We were all sitting on the dinner table. Nina. She told me I was about to sit on one of the chairs. She yelled at me saying, "No, don't sit there, someone's sitting there." I was like, "What? There's no one sitting there." I nudged it off. I thought she was just trying to scare me. I sat next to her. After a couple of hours, I went back downstairs again. It was just me. I was awake. I was going to grab a drink of water. I accidentally bumped onto the table, making the cup fall. It was a glass cup. It picked it up. I put it back there. And I thought it was so odd that the angels would leave the cup there. I was like, whatever. Grabbed my cup, went upstairs. And as soon as I was about to climb upstairs, I heard the glass fall. I remember vividly there were no windows open. There were no fans AC on. I ran upstairs. My siblings were so used to hearing things fall, or someone calling us when it's just us. We knew it wasn't there was. because it would be the voice of my aunts and uncles when they were in America. We thought it was just normal hearing these things because my neighbors would tell me. We experienced some of that things here at our house. So we were like, yeah, it's fine. There's a saying in the Philippines, if you acknowledge it, the stronger it will get. So we pretend it wasn't there. My siblings and I, even when we're together playing, we would hear someone calling us, not by our names, but going STST, when we would get creeped out. We would hear the voices of them calling us downstairs, when we're upstairs, or the room next to us, even though it's empty. My third encounter with the kid. I was eating in the dinner table. It was dinner time. Next to the dinner table was a hallway, a long hallway to the laundry room. We have this weird battery charger. It would constantly blink red or green. I had a feeling of someone watching me. Down that hallway in the laundry room. The room was pitch black. All you could see is the red light blinking. I quickly turned around. I saw a kid peeking through the door. It was a Japanese boy. He had a pale face and didn't have any eyes. It was just pure black, no expression at all. I started crying. My sister shaked me, saying like, "Hey, what's wrong, what's wrong?" And I pointed at the hallway, seeming like there's a kid there. My siblings were hesitant. One of the angels went over there, opened the lights and said, "There's nothing there," and for the rest of the night. They left the lights open because I was crying so hard. I know something was there. My other encounter, it was at the dinner table. I was eating when I looked down. I saw a kid looking directly at me, holding onto my knees. When I quickly looked back up, it was gone. At this point, I was around 12 or 15. I just brushed it off. It's been happening my whole life. We've been seeing things that would just run. Across the room, only I encountered the child. Allison's story continues right after this stay with us. The reason why I'm confident it was a child. My aunt, before she flew to America, she had her friend come over, and she didn't know she was a medium, someone that can see ghosts and contact the dead. When she entered the house, she felt dread. She was overwhelmed with sadness. She said, "There are spirits here. One is a child, one is a woman, and one is a man." She felt creeped out. She didn't know what to do. That's why I know what I was seeing. My sister, Nina, she encountered the woman the day before my mom's birthday, around October 27th, the night before. She was downstairs and back home. We call it terraces. It's just a huge backyard. It says terraces where people can get around. Think of it as a living room, but it's more spacious. There was a glass door, a huge glass door and wall, connecting the main living room and the terrace. It was around 10 p.m. All my siblings were upstairs. We had another maid, her name was. It was Atebeka. She was in charge of taking care of my little brother, Gabby, because he was still a kid back then. My sister, Nina, was downstairs fixing all the party stuff. She was hanging up balloons on the ceiling, banners, and at the corner of her eye. She saw Atebeka. It was odd, because all she was wearing was all dark. She was wearing black clothes, and she noticed she had only 3 fingers. She was staring directly at my sister. She looked just like Atebeka. She didn't bother with her. She went on, shrugging it off. She slammed herself onto the glass door, and my sister stopped. It wasn't strong enough to make the glass shake, but you would hear it. It was strong enough that you could hear it. My sister looked at her and said, "What are you doing?" There's a door right there if you want to walk through it." She got annoyed more than scared when she went back onto doing the decorations. Second time, she slammed herself full body onto the glass. She got more irritated. She was like, "What are you doing?" "There's a door right there at the Becca, if you want to walk through it." She pointed at it, but the girl wasn't looking at anything else but my sister. Direct eye contact. The third time was after a couple of minutes. It was so hard that she said the glass shook to the point it almost broke. My sister got so mad. She ran through the door and it was gone. She was then creeped out and went to the maid's room. It was on the first floor. They were all wearing pink and bright colors. And they said, like, "Have you seen Adabeka?" "Number, she is upstairs taking care of Gabby." She said that's impossible, because she was just downstairs, watching me do the decorations. They were all so confused. She went upstairs, and Adabeka was upstairs in my mom's room. She was wearing a light blue shirt, pink pants. She got so scared. She started telling my siblings and Adabek that, "I saw you just downstairs wearing black." He had 3 fingers. She's like, "What are you talking about?" Another occasion, when my mom started believing us, is when Gabby was 4 or 5. He saw the woman again. This time, he was with Adabeka again, by the staircase. They were walking upstairs. Gabby told Adabeka to stop and move, because there's a woman walking upstairs. Adabeka got so scared, picked up Gabby and ran upstairs. Told my mom that your son is seeing things. That's when my mom was like, "Yeah. No, we're done. We're done." This was a week before my uncle visited us from America. They talked about it. He built another house somewhere far from here. We went to Project 6, and at the new house, it felt like a huge weight from my back was gone. I didn't feel like being watched. Then more I felt like, as if didn't need to worry so much or be scared. Around the house, before we left, the woman really made herself know that she was there. It wasn't my experience, but there was a picture of it. I wished I had that picture. In the downstairs living room, we had a huge mirror that, you know when you go inside a ballet's dance room, and there's a huge mirror just like that. We had one of those next to. It is all pictures of my aunts and uncles when they were children. One of the things that were standing out of it was a statue of a woman sitting down and a man playing a harp. Becca was taking pictures of herself on that mirror. She screamed so loud that my Nina and the other maid ran downstairs like, "What happened? What happened?" She was crying hysterically, saying, "There was someone next to me. There was a woman. It was a picture of an old Japanese woman. Next to her, all you could see was her face." My sister and the other maid tried to take pictures. Again, exact same pose, and where she was, thinking that they were just trying to prank them. And no, it was next to her. A woman with a pale face with red lipstick. She had no eyes. It was just dark. It was the traditional Japanese woman. Makeup, I know. This is because me and my younger brother, Miguel, were rough playing in the maid's room. And Becca was there. She said, like, "If you don't stop, this girl will take you." She showed a picture of it. At first we were confused and laughing like, "Yeah, you're just scaring us. That's not real." She told us, "Go ask the other maid and your sister." We went up to our sister and we asked. And she told us the story. I still remember the picture of that woman. It was very terrifying. I asked Becca if she would ever delete the pictures. She said no. She believed that if you delete the picture, you would set the spirit free. And what's stopping it from haunting her? Was that picture so after that? We finished packing up and left. Everyone left, my uncle put it up to sale, and there were new people that moved into that house. I just came back from visiting my aunts and uncles, and in the US I asked them, "How's the house going?" They told me the new owners were complaining about it. They just moved out too. It's just vacant at this point. No one wants to buy it. My grandpa was an architect. He built over a dumping site of Japanese corpses. He told me after we all moved out, if you have a story to share, head on over to True Scary Story, and fill out the form for ad-free episodes and more. Try out Scary plus for free to get in touch. My details are in the description of this episode, and you can also follow our Instagram and TikTok over at scary.fm. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. 34. Real life nightmare. Life inside a haunted house. My name is Ariel. I grew up in a haunted house for 14 years in Richmond, British Columbia, Canada. I moved into the house in 2005. I was 7 years old. From the very beginning, this eerie feeling, I felt like somebody was watching me. Like there was always something waiting around the corner. Every time I walked into another room, I was scared somebody was going to be there. Something was going to be there. My parents, they always chalked it up to, "Oh, we're just living in a bigger house now. You're just getting used to it." I don't know, I always felt something was weird. I would start seeing shadows or figures. Oftentimes when I was in my room, I could see a shadow of feet underneath my bedroom door. It would just all of a sudden walk away. It wouldn't vanish, I would see it walk away. I would go and open my door, thinking that my parents were there or something. There's nobody there. Sometimes I would even hear creaking outside my door, like footsteps. A lot of nights there would be this really tall, looming shadow in the corner of my room. I would wake up in the middle of the night and see this super tall shadow that stretched from the floor all the way to my ceiling. Sometimes it was in one corner, and sometimes it was in another. It was in the shape of a tall, lanky man. I would look at it in the middle of the night, just trying to not see it, just trying to convince myself it's not there. There's nothing there. I was often paralyzed. I couldn't move. I'd hid under my blankets and hoped that I could go to sleep. Some nights it was there. It really haunted me. I would also hear footsteps. Most nights, I would hear them walking away from my door in my room. Too, sometimes they would wake me up. I'd be in my bed asleep, and I would hear a shuffling noise, with creaking along my floor, as if somebody was standing right next to me. I didn't want to turn around, look and see what or who was there, because of the footsteps. I couldn't be in my room alone in the silence at night. In order to sleep, I would have to turn the radio on, or some sort of music on. I needed to just drown out any noises that were happening during the night, along with the footsteps and the shadows. The mirrors in my house, I would see figures in mirrors. They would dip behind walls. One time, I was standing in my front entryway. We had a mirror there. Behind me would be our dining room. You could see part of it, and then the rest was behind a wall. I was putting my shoes on, and then I stood up. I was facing the mirror, and the mirror was showing the dining room behind me. I saw a girl. She was young, probably around 12 or 13, but she had raggedy, messy, matted hair, and this ripped white dress. It was all dirty. I saw her walk into my dining room. It was so vivid, I thought to myself, oh my God, who's in my house right now? I remember just rushing into my dining room to be like, hello, there was nobody there. I went to go speak to my parents and I said, hey, who's this girl in the house? Did you invite somebody in it? Does she need help? Or what's going on? They just had no idea what I was talking about. I told them I was in the entryway. I saw her in the mirror. She walked into the dining room. My dad is the biggest horror fan in the whole entire world, he just thought. Oh my God, that's really cool. You actually saw her. That's so cool. He was just fascinated. Meanwhile, I'm just terrified. For the entire time that I lived at that house, my best friend at the time refused to sleep over unless I covered all of the mirrors in my room with towels or blankets every time she came over. She kept seeing figures and shadows in them that weren't there, that creeped me out even more. It validated me. But I thought, okay, at least maybe I'm not crazy. I am actually seeing these things. But at the same time, I was like, well, my friend gets to go home and I have to live here. I remember all of my friends telling me, when they would come over, they felt uneasy, unwelcome in my house. As soon as they stepped into my house, they felt like they shouldn't be there, like they weren't allowed to be there. They just shouldn't, which was also disheartening to hear. I used to suffer from insomnia as a child. I had nightmares in that house, a recurring one that I would have. It was from the point of view of an intruder in my house, almost as if they were giving one of those realtor tours on camera, but 1,000 times more ominous. They would just slowly glide through my house. I'd do a circle in my living room, and then go down the hallway. Very slow, it always took place at night. There was never any noise or sound associated with it. It was just vision. It would always end up outside my bedroom door. It would open my bedroom door, but I would never go in. The worst part of those nightmares in particular was I knew that I was dreaming. I was awake in the dream, but I knew that I was dreaming, and I physically could not wake up. I would always try to will myself wake up, and I physically could not. I felt stuck. I remember thinking, I'm never going to wake up again. The nightmares, they were so common. I had to hang 3 or 4 dream catchers in my room. I don't really know if they worked, but it made me feel a little bit better at least. I knew I'm going to have a nightmare tonight. I don't know what it's going to be. It's either going to be about a natural disaster where my whole family dies, or it's going to be somebody intruding in my house. And it was just always so creepy and terrifying. I would watch doors open and close by themselves, or I would hear them in the house. Worst of all was my bedroom closet door. My closet door was on an old rusty hinge, and the track was also old. It could wake me up. Many nights I would be having a nightmare. When I would wake up from the nightmare, I would sit up and see that my closet door was open. Sometimes it would be wide open. Sometimes it would just be a crack. One night, I woke up from one of those horrible point of view intruder nightmares, where the person had opened my bedroom door. And I remember waking up. My bedroom door was open. I looked at my closet door. It was also open. I ran to my parents' room. I woke them up and I said, "Why did you come in my room? Did you open my door, my closet door? What is going on? This isn't funny." I was just terrified, crying, hyperventilating, and eventually, they calmed me down, and my mom ended up coming to sleep in my bed with me so that I could actually sleep. It's one of those experiences. I remember it to this day. I remember the exact feeling I had. A pit in your stomach again. Something is around the corner. Something is waiting for me. It felt so ominous and evil. It didn't feel like it had good intentions. The rest of Ariel's story continues right after this. Stay with us. None of my other family members experienced it. To the level that I did there were a couple times, where we all saw doors violently swing open. But nobody was as terrified as I was. Nobody else was having these dreams. Nobody else's doors were swinging open. I felt targeted. I remember the worst. Absolute worst incident, though, that still haunts me. I was 10 or 11. I was often homesick from school, because I was barely sleeping. My parents had just left for work 5 minutes earlier, and my brother was already gone on his way to school whenever everybody left the house. I immediately would go downstairs, just to be in the family rooms, so I could be close to an exit door if I got too scared. I came downstairs into this hallway, between the kitchen and the living room. I remember seeing my cats in the hallway. I bent down to say goodbye. Morning, give them some pets. As I bent down, I heard a closet door open from upstairs. It wasn't mine because it wasn't creaky. I looked back at my cats. Both of their ears were completely folded back. They were very upset they had both snapped their heads. To look straight upstairs, where the noise came from. Then I heard heavy footsteps thumping on the carpet, coming down the hallway, towards the top of the staircase. Along with these thumping footsteps, that sounded as if someone was wearing heavy. Work boots was this horrible, sinking, all-encompassing feeling that locked me in place. I could not move. I felt paralyzed, like in my intruder dreams where I couldn't wake up. Then I hear the footsteps start thumping, one by one down the stairs. I am directly to the left of the staircase. They were halfway down the stairs. I snapped out of it, and my only thought was, I need to run. I sprinted to my neighbor's house. I was in my pajamas. I told my neighbors someone just broke in my house. They're in my house right now. She offered to call the cops, and for some reason I was like, no. I want to call my parents, but I called my dad. He pulled like a U-turn on the highway, sped all the way back. He was only 5 minutes away. Anyways, thankfully, him and my mom get home, and they rush into the house, and they start calling out for anyone in the house to come out, that they're going to call the cops, that they're on the way. I refused to go into the house. It was a good hour before my parents had convinced me to come back in, because there was nobody in the house. They checked every single closet everywhere. Nobody's there. It's empty. I finally went back in. I told my dad again. I heard a closet door open. They came out of a closet upstairs, and he's checked all the closet. There's nobody in there. He took me upstairs to open and shut the closets and identify which one. I heard as soon as he opened my brother's closet. I was like, that's the one. It's my brother's closet, he was like. That's weird. There's no way this could have opened. It was shut when he came upstairs. I refused to be alone in the house for 6 months afterwards. We knew, okay? Nobody actually broke into the house. My parents were trying to explain it away. I started thinking when my parents got into the house. It was all locked except for the front door. From the inside, if there was an intruder, They couldn't have gotten out from any other door. If they had come out, the front door took like a special force to close, because they had put some weather stripping on it, or something. Nobody, not even close family friends, were able to close it. Only me and my family knew. It takes practice closing it. That's when I started getting even more scared, because I thought, okay, I am not crazy. I was not dreaming. Something happened. I don't know what it was, but what if I hadn't snapped out of it? And I just sat there and waited for whatever it was to get down the stairs and reach me. And it's still to this day. Every time I talk about it, I'm looking over my shoulder, and I still get these horrible chills. Thankfully, that only happened once, and I lived there for 10 or 11 more years before I moved out. But that definitely was not the end of the incidents. Shadows, seeing things in mirrors, lights turning on and off that continued up until I moved out in the middle of the night. I used to hear somebody messing with the beads outside of my door, and I would hear clicking on my door. Some nights I would open my door. Nobody was there. Cats were not there. They were fast asleep on my parents' bed. I would be in my room upstairs. I would hear my mom call my name, run downstairs and be like, "Yeah, what do you want?" she always said. "I didn't call for you. What are you doing down here?" My dad did experience a lot of things in that house. He didn't admit it to me until a couple of years before I moved out. He saw figures and shadows flitting. From one room to another, he heard my name being called, sometimes by my brother, sometimes by my mom. He also had lights turn on and off in a lot of rooms that he was in. He actually had a piece of paper thrown at him. It was whipped from the coffee table into his face. The only thing my mom actually ever experienced was she would have things go missing. They would miraculously show up somewhere else. One time her wallet went missing. It was in her purse, obviously. My dad was looking for it all day. So was my mom. I was looking for it too. I went downstairs. Her purse was in the center of the living room. Her wallet was sitting right next to. It went to hold my mom, and I was like, "Your wallet's right here. What are you talking about?" She was white in the face. She was like, "Okay, I'm going insane." I thought that they were playing a trick on me. One time, her credit card went missing. She found it just balanced on top of her wallet. Later on in the day, none of us took it, but she would just find stuff balanced on top of her stuff, or in just a very convenient location. They tried to look up the house history, and nothing was found. There were no documented deaths in the house in Canada. It's not legally required for realtors to disclose, or even document if deaths occurred in a house. The only places that keep those records are the police department, and again, that information you can't really get unless you're related to whoever passed away. We never found anything. But I do remember when my parents were getting the keys for the place, the previous owners were there. We were just having a chat with them and saying, "Thank you, we're gonna love this house and everything." My dad, he was offering his condolences because the guy who lived there, his wife had passed away fairly recently. A year prior, my dad asked him "Oh, I'm so sorry about that. It's really tough. I hope that she was comfortable where she was." The previous owner of the house was quite cagey about where she was when she passed away. He just said, "Yep, she was comfortable." He had mentioned she hated hospitals. So we were like, was she in the house? It's possible that she passed away in the house. I I know a lot of people pass away at home. It's just what happens. But I just know the house was built in 1970. It wasn't ridiculously old or anything. Whatever it was just didn't have good intentions because of how it made me feel. You might hear a door open or a door close or a light flicker, and you might think, oh, maybe that's just my family member visiting me. But for me, it was the feeling of dread. You can share your own story and get in touch with me over at True Scary Story Com. And up next, check out our other shows from Scary FM. A link to them in the description of the episode. Ad-free versions are available in our Scary Plus membership, which is free for 2 weeks and then $4.99 a month after that. You can cancel anytime. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story Ghosts of the Beach House, a Family's Encounter. Growing up, I had a lot of paranormal experiences. They were super subtle sensitivity to energies, noticing things in the home, hearing things when I was growing up in Fredericksburg, Virginia, if you're unfamiliar with the place. There was a lot of battles that happened. In Fredericksburg, Virginia, there's a lot of paranormal activity. They do a lot of Civil War, Revolutionary War reenactment. My grandfather was a home inspector. He would take me on a lot of his home inspections, and he would tell me scary stories about the property. We would hear footsteps, and one time he was in a foyer of an old colonial home. A pot flew across. A lot of the times his equipment was moved. One time I was with him, we came back inside the house. I looked down on the floor. The door was open. There was 2 muddy handprints, and 1 muddy footprint for about 6 or 7 steps, as if somebody was crawling, because they didn't have a leg anymore. All of this was fun and games for me, until I had the experience I'm about to tell you about. It happened a couple of years ago, in a different location, Topsail Island, North Carolina. Topsail Island, it was a massive hub for pirates. People think that they can still see Blackbeard's ship on the horizon. People also think that it might be the last resting place of Blackbeard's treasures. Topsail Island has a significant amount of energy. I had none of this information. When my family booked a vacation in Topsail, they were renting the beach house. When my family booked this vacation, I did travel all the way from Pennsylvania. Down to Topsail, I was already pretty tired. The drive was a couple of hours. For 6, I think my boyfriend at the time. He picked me up, drove me all the way down. I slept a little bit in the car, but I was still really groggy. When I arrived at the beach house, it was not scary at all. It was a white house on stilts. The area surrounding was very swampy, but nothing that alerted me to anything. It was about 2-ish o'clock in the morning. I had just woken up. I was super groggy. I wasn't aware of what was going on. I'm locked on the door. My grandfather. He opened up the door. They both were whispering. They were tired. No one else was in the house. We said our greetings. It was cordial. Come in, okay? Thank you. Let's go to bed. My grandparents requested that my boyfriend and I sleep in separate rooms. They pointed me to the back room where I would sleep. It was through the kitchen. His room was closer to the front entrance and had a loft bedroom upstairs. I remember going into that room and feeling the heaviest weight I have ever felt in my entire life. This should have sent off some sort of ringer in my head, but it didn't. I was so tired. It was this really dense, thick smog kind of feeling. The feeling that hits you in the center of your chest, on your back, on your shoulders. I completely ignored it, and I had no other thoughts in my mind. Just unpack your stuff and get to bed. and I was unpacking these. These thoughts were not my own. I felt the energy of my past relatives. My great-grandmother was there. My great-grandfather was there. My great-aunt, they were there to protect me, to take care of me, and I just ignored it. I picked the bed, and that was closest to the back patio. I fell asleep. Enough time had passed. We are creeping into the 3 o'clock hour. We are creeping into the witching hour. I don't even know how long I was asleep. I was woken up by a pressing into the bed. I was not shook. I was not nudged. Nothing fell. I was pressed. Like somebody had put their hands on either side of my chest and pressed me into the bed. It was constant. It was rhythmic and very heavy. I could feel the sides of the pillow curl around my head. My head was being pressed into the bed. Of the pillow was touching the sides of my face. I've had sleep paralysis before. This is not sleep paralysis. I was hit with that overwhelming feeling. My relatives are there. It was a chatter. It was very noisy in my head. I remember being unable to move. I opened my eyes. It was an operation. 6 inches from my face, it was the blackest black, but also had outlines I could tell was a woman. Her eyes were sunken in. They were pitch black. Her hair was floating. It was gray. It was coming out at all ends like Medusa, like she was in water. Her mouth was open like a snarl, latching onto somebody wide open. Her teeth were all sharp. She had white markings on her face, 2 that were going vertical, 1 on her forehead to her hairline, 1 down her chin, and 2 horizontal on the sides of her cheeks, as if somebody had put their fingers in paint and smeared them across their cheeks. This encounter seemed to go on forever. It felt like time had stopped. I was absolutely paralyzed. I remember sitting there in complete and utter fear, staring at this figure. I remember feeling like my breath was taken out of my chest. She was pulling it from me. I remember trying to scream and not being able to. I knew that. My own essence was starting to get compromised. All of a sudden, at once, I remembered that what you do in these moments is you remind the entity that you are the one that's alive. I shut my eyes and I started screaming. I'm alive, you are not. I'm here, you're not wanted here. All the while, I felt like my family was there. They were fighting this with me. It was completely chaotic and not of my own imagination. Suddenly, she was gone. The chatter stopped. The pressing stopped. I could breathe again. I could talk again. I ran into my boyfriend's room at the time. I remember saying to him, I either had a very vivid dream or I just saw a ghost. He had also had his own apparition that he experienced at a different time and a different location, and he went, oh, okay. Well, let's go to bed. I remember going to bed that night and not believing it. The next morning, I woke up and I told my family. I was very vague about it. They joked about it and went, oh, maybe it's haunted. And I was like, okay, maybe, and we moved on with our day. They didn't take me seriously at all. Even though my grandfather had had experiences in his past, as well as my grandmother. She even captured an apparition in Fredericksburg with her camera sitting in a pew. My family is relatively sensitive, but we have never dabbled with anything that was dark, deliberately messing with us in any way. We went out, learned all about the pirates and tops and everything. That night, we as a family were playing Monopoly. The kitchen table was right next to my bedroom door. It was just fine. We had lots of laughs. And my grandmother said, "Okay, I'm gonna go to bed." And my boyfriend was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna go to bed. It's just my grandfather and I in the kitchen, cleaning up the board." He goes to my door. He stops and he stares. He looks back at me and says, "You're right. The pressure changes at night." And I went, "Okay. Well, I'm not going to spend the night there. I'm not going to sleep in that room. Never again." He went, "I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I don't blame you." And I spent the night within my boyfriend's room. Who had a twin bed? It wasn't an ideal situation. The next morning I wake up, and I hear my grandmother from the top of the stairs say in almost a joking way, "Baka saw the ghost." And Baka is the name that I call my grandfather. I went, "What?" She was joking. But my grandfather, he was really shaken. He comes downstairs. He says at about 3 a.m, he was woken up by being pressed into the bed. This is a detail that I did not tell him. When he woke up, he kept his eyes closed and he turned over to my grandmother, who was to his right. He said annoyingly, "Pat, why? Why are you waking me up? She's still kind of asleep." "Doug, I'm not doing that." In that moment, he hears his wife's voice next to him. He opens his eyes. He sees a tall, black, shadowy figure in a top hat, sitting in the chair at the foot of the bed. He said to her then, "Who is sitting in that chair?" When she woke up, he turned to her. It was gone. I decided to sleep in the same room as my grandmother. I remember having the light on the whole time and having this unmistakable pressure surrounding me, constantly like chatter in my head, static around me. The energy was off, and my eyes were fixated on the foot of the bed. The moment that 3 a.m. passed, I turned over, looked at the clock, and I think it was 3:05, 3:10. Suddenly I was able to fall asleep. We told the owners of this house what had happened. They said, "Oh, you've never had any ghost encounters before." So I put it to bed. Whatever that was. That was very much real. It became my ghost story. During COVID, I was flipping through some streaming service. There was some documentary style on sleep paralysis. They showed a picture of a sleep paralysis demon called the Old Hag. It was an artistic rendering, I think done over 100 years ago, and I froze. It's exactly what I had seen that night. There are other renderings of the old tag. That didn't quite fit the bill, but this one did. The sunken black eyes, the open mouth, the vampiric teeth, the floating gray hair, and the pressing on the chest, and it sent shivers up and down my spine. I found out that there are predominantly 2 sleep paralysis demons that have been known throughout centuries, throughout millennia, and across the world. Everybody's stories are exactly the same. It is pressing into the bed, stolen breath, something staring at you. The old hag sits on your chest, and the other one is called the Shadow Man. Shadow Man stands at the foot of your bed. He's oftentimes seen wearing a top hat. Putting this together, I realized I had seen the old hag, and the following night, my grandfather had seen the Shadow Man. We had no previous experience or knowledge of this. We were just 2 people that have had paranormal experiences before. Maybe these demons latched onto us that night because we were open. I have made certain that I am not as vulnerable as I was. That night, I found out that some people have had recurring visits from these demons, and it often happens because they are so vulnerable. I don't know if it was just age, but I have been way more receptive to the paranormal. I can see things, apparitions, and Elisa's story continues right after this. Stay with us. My ex-partner I was living with a couple of years ago, he was a big skeptic when I told him this. He would shrug it off. One night, I was really trying to understand, what is this? Is this something that I have now? What is this? I was woken up by him screaming in bed, shrieking. I turn over, I see him. He pushed himself up on the bed, trying to get away from something. He was staring at the door. He told me I saw a tall, black, shadowy figure standing in the doorway with a hat on. I don't know if he experienced the shadow man at that one point, but ever since then, he's only had brief experiences with hearing his grandfather, his grandmother. One time he saw his grandfather in a car door, but he's really had nothing significant since then. There was an apparition attached to an old, vintage vanity of mine that I've had for years. It was an elderly woman. This person was in my house at the same time. We looked up and he went, "It's a woman. Older woman, tall." I went, "White hair, Victorian." He went, "Yes. She's good, though she's just lost." I have actually been able to help a friend who lost her husband, unfortunately, to suicide. This was completely unintentional. I was chatting with her at a pool party. She started opening up to me, and suddenly her past husband was there. I was able to tell her things about him that she had not told me. I knew where he was touching her and how he was touching her. She started breaking down and crying. I don't know if that experience with that demon changed something in me that made me more open. But you bet I sage my house every day. I don't ever sleep on my back anymore. I just don't want to recreate that night. But it does seem that once these sleep demons enter your life, you become a little bit more attuned to the paranormal, I guess. Just had a lot of significant encounters since then. I used to live by an old iron mill, and I watched my dog get spooked by something, and at the same time I felt that pressure. The other night, I watched my other dog alert to the corner of a room where we have kind of an altar for my deceased dog that just passed. I watched him stare in that corner and alert to it, try to smell the air, and once again, I felt that pressure, but it was positive. When it passed over me, I felt a wind on my face. I just have a lot of these experiences nowadays, that it seems kind of normal. That veil has been thinned in a way. Still to this day, I haven't had any more encounters with her. I don't want to have any more encounters with her. Maybe I wasn't the right kind of energy she wanted to feed off of. People will chalk it up to, "Oh, you were sleeping," and if you do some research on it, people don't actually know what sleep paralysis is. They don't understand why it happens. If someone has experienced sleep paralysis before, they know that it's completely different than being manipulated and seeing a demon. That was very different. I don't know if I can find that picture, but if you Google old hag demon, somebody put this depiction in a nurse's outfit. It's like blue-purple colored is the hue of the painting, just the way that her mouth is open and her hair is standing on end, and how she's touching whomever she's sitting on. It's very similar to what I experienced. I don't know the origin. We have all of our theories on what demons could be. My personal theory is that demons are spirits that are stuck that have been stuck for so many years. They become poltergeist and become demons. That's just my personal theory, whoever the old hag and the shadow man are. They are ancient. They are millennia old. If you do some digging, you can find that there are encounters that people have had that are centuries old all across the globe. For me, that just validates it even further. Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis? Let me know in the comments or through Instagram. I'll leave my contact information in the description of this episode. I'm on there as Edwin Cove, that's EDWINCOV. And if you have a story that you want to share, head on over to True Scary Story. Communications subscribers, I'll talk to you in the next episode. And thank you, everyone that has tried Scary Plus over on Scary Plus. I really appreciate your support. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story Bad Intentions. We lived in a neighborhood called Pilsen in Chicago. One of my aunts lived across the street, but I used to love to go over there, to be with my cousins. The houses in Pilsner are really big old structures. It was an old, predominantly immigrant neighborhood, but the houses are Victorian style. They have a big living room, big dining rooms, small bedrooms, big kitchens, a lot of hidden closets, and little places where you can hide. Play hide and go seek. They had little crawl spaces in some of the closets. Those were our favorite places to play. In my cousin's house, there was a closet that had little stairs. Inside the little stairs was another little crawl space. We used to go in there and talk about the things that kids talk about, but you can hear things that were going on in the other rooms. One time, me and my cousins were playing in there, and we heard my aunts did not like him. They called him a bruto, a bad man, or a witch. My aunt had been married and loved her husband. To go with this uncle, they all said that he had practiced witchcraft on her, to get her to go with him. That was unheard of at that time for someone to leave their first husband and to go with someone else. And he was much, much older than my aunt. Much older. Most of my aunts were afraid of him. My uncle, he was calling out to things. He was saying bad words, calling for revenge, and we got scared. My cousins were telling me, he sometimes does that when he gets angry at people. We're not supposed to go into his room or talk to him. We heard him stop and walk out of the room. I went into his room, into his closet. We found a little box, a little black box. Inside of it were little bottles of oils. Haircrossed is. He caught us looking in there. He yelled at his kids. "What are you doing in here? And you're never supposed to come in here." I got really scared and he told me to go home. I went home. I was really scared. My mom asked me what happened. What did you do over there?" 'Cause my aunt called her and said that I had been misbehaving and not to come back. My mom really reprimanded me very much. I was very sorry. She told me to apologize to my aunt and uncle, which I did. I couldn't get out of my mind the stuff that happened with the closet and the things that I found. I was sitting with my dad in the kitchen. I used to wait for my dad to get home to eat with him. My dad was a very religious man. He was always in the church. He was a deacon. Every time I had a problem at school or anything, I would always see him reading his Bible. He would always say, "There's a story in the Bible about that. About bullying. If I had a problem with my brother," he would say, the story of Joseph. He had problems with his brother. He was always talking to me about the Bible. I told him what happened. He was furious, very upset. He dropped his plate of frijoles, grabbed me from my hand and started opening the door to go across the street, and grabbed me and didn't say a word. My dad knocked on their door. He confronted my uncle. He said, "I don't ever want you to expose my daughter to any of that kind of stuff. You shouldn't do that to your children either." He looked at me and didn't say anything. My dad just left and he said, "You don't ever have to be afraid to tell me anything." Like that again. After that happened, one day I was homesick from school. I heard the doorbell ring. This happened a couple of weeks later. I opened the door. It was my uncle. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. My aunt wasn't with him. I didn't know why he was there. I told my mom my uncle's here. She was surprised. Also, she said, "Okay, let him in." She told me to keep him in the living room, so I just stayed there with him. I didn't talk to him and put my head down. He said, "Come here." I didn't want to go to him, so my mom called him to have some coffee in the kitchen. Then he laughed right away. I don't know what he came to tell my mother that day. Whatever it was, it scared my mom. That same night I went to sleep. I shared a room with my little brother. Something that caught my attention. I saw a light coming in through the corner of my bedroom. As I looked up, I saw a man. He had an old chauffeur kind of uniform on, and he had dark glasses on. His skin was really pale. I could just see his hand. His hand had a black ring on it. I could see the buttons of his jacket. He was looking at me. His face was so pale. His lips were blackish. He looked at me, and he had the dark glasses. I could see he was looking straight at me. He just stayed there, staring, peeking. I just froze, and I tried to pretend that it was a dream. I know I saw him. I kept closing my eyes and opening them up again. He was still there. He pointing at me and nodding, yes. I let out a scream and called for my mom. My mom came into the room and said, "What's going on?" I said, I saw this man. It's like, "Oh, you're just dreaming, don't worry. You did something you shouldn't have done. And now you're feeling bad. That's why you can't sleep." She stayed with me and she prayed with me. I went to sleep when she was next to me. I was very rattled for the next few days. Another night I was asleep. I heard a thump right in front of my bed. A big thump. I opened my eyes and I saw like a cane that looked like a rain cane. A cane that makes the sound of rain. It was being held by a woman in a dark dress. There was a little girl with her that had sunken eyes. She had blondish hair. The little girl was so sad. She was being held by the wrist by this woman. The other hand she had on that cane. She looked at me, and she thumped again real hard on the floor. I knew she wanted me to get up. She was staring down at me. I didn't know what to do. I was frozen. She thumped again. I knew that I had to get up. I sat up in my bed, and she moved out of my way, towards the door to go out into the dining room. As I looked at her, she looked back at me like, "Are you coming?" I got up. I started to follow them into the living room. I don't know why I started to follow them. I knew I had to. I knew I did. I walked into the parlor. What looked like a parlor. The whole living room was different. We had a fireplace. A real fireplace in the home. My mom always put a chair there because the cold air would come into into the house from the chimney. The chair wasn't there. There was a fire actually going in the fireplace. There were all these people sitting in the living room, looking at me. There was that man. He was dressed in that same chauffeur outfit, with his cap on the dark glasses. He started walking towards me. I saw the room. I was just amazed at the room. The furniture was different. The curtains, everything was different, except that there was a picture of my mom and dad. I looked at it. Was my mom and dad's wedding picture. It's a black and white picture, and as I looked at it, it crashed down on the floor. Everything stopped, and I was standing in that dark living room. I was weeping and wailing. This time my dad came into the... I was like, what is going on? What are you doing? I said, Dad. And I explained to him what had just happened. He just told me that everything was going to be okay. Nothing was going to happen. He believed me. Then my mom came and said, I think she's just making things up. My dad said, no, I do believe. My daughter, leave her alone. I was crying. I went back into the room. I couldn't get that out of my mind. Margarita's story continues right after this. Stay with us. Through the weeks, the teachers started to send notes home to my parents, saying what was wrong with me. My grades were dropping. There was a lot of arguing in the house. My mom and dad were fighting all the time. One of the arguments started to stem up because my uncle would no longer let my aunt come to visit. Our house and I was not allowed to go over there. I told one of my aunts what was going on, and she came and talked to me, and she said, I know what's going on. I know he's a brujo. What you have is something called sosto. He scared you. He scared you. And you can't be afraid of those things. You can't give that power. You have to trust that all is going to be okay. There is always a power bigger than anything bad. For everything that is bad, if you believe in bad, you have to believe in good. She told me the next time that woman came, or anybody came into my room, to tell them to go away, that you are not going with them, that you are protected. Do not allow them to take you anywhere. The next time it happened. A few days later, I saw the man again. This time, he put his hand out like, You're coming with me. I said, No, I'm not going with you. I started to yell loud. And no, I'm not going. I thought I was talking. But I wasn't. I couldn't talk. But in my mind, I was saying, I'm not going with you. I'm not going. I was terrified of him. He started to walk towards me. At that time, my brother started to rumble in his sleep. I moved from my bed to his side of the bed. I lied down next to my brother and started to hug my brother. I closed my eyes. I said, I'm not going. I'm not going. I started hearing the thumping from the woman. I couldn't look. I kept saying, I'm not going. It seemed endless, but it finally stopped. It stopped, I felt like. There was clean air. I felt it leave. I felt the chills, the darkness, the dampy smell, because it came with a musty kind of smell, like wet dirt, but with garbage. It's a smell you can't ever forget, the musky, dirty smell of earth. And it was gone. I didn't smell it anymore. Weeks later, the arguing between my parents settled down. Things started going back to normal in our house. They would greet each other. They would start laughing together. We started being our regular family again. It was at that time that my uncle and aunt decided to to move back to Puerto Rico. They decided they were going to pick up and take the kids back to Puerto Rico. But before that happened, my aunt got very sick. She had to be put in a home. She had a series of strokes. And my uncle left her to live in Puerto Rico. After that, we heard stories about him joining some kind of church and getting arrested for hurting children. Eventually, my aunt and him divorced. We heard nothing from him again. My other cousins had run-ins with him. He died a terrible death as well. He caught, gangrene. He died in prison for whatever it was that he did in Puerto Rico. I can't really say, I just know that was something against a child in a church. He was accused and found guilty. In Puerto Rico, he was a chauffeur, but I think it was in another aspect of him, because he was a chauffeur in Puerto Rico. He used to drive a taxi or drive people. I do know that. He used to work for a rich family in Puerto Rico. Driving them around, I found that out much later. But that would make sense why I saw him like that. None of them want to see him at the end. They're all good people to this day. I adore my cousins. They grew up to be wonderful, wonderful people. They remembered their father with love. But not many of our other relatives agree with that. My aunt tells me how brave I was to be able to confront him. And that's a lesson I've learned. I have to always face my fears with courage. Years later, I would talk to my brother about this. I was telling him, I used to be really scared in that house. He said, "Oh yeah, the lady with the cane, right?" I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I remember when she used to come into our room and try to take you away." I said, "Why didn't you ever say anything?" He said, "Because I didn't want her to take me. I'd rather her try to take you than to take me." He validated it for me, my brother told me. No matter where I am, I will always protect you. My brother died in 2020 from COVID. I still feel him around me. Sometimes when I'm scared or feeling lonely, I'll feel his presence around me, and I know that he's close. I've also learned now that there are some things that are always good here. And in the afterlife, you can embrace those. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story. There's something in the closet. I grew up in a small town called Lake Los Angeles. It's 30 minutes away from Lancaster, an hour away from Los Angeles. This house was bought by my dad. He built it up. Whatever was in that house didn't come from the land. It came from something I didn't know. The first encounters, I would be outside playing or be alone. I would hear my mom call me. I would run to her. This happened countless times. My mom would be like, "No, I didn't call you. What are you talking about?" I do recall the feeling of being watched, being afraid to be alone. I was really scared of being alone, even as a toddler, as a baby. I was scared of being alone in that house. I was in 3rd grade. I was sitting down next to my bed folding my clothes. My closet was wide open. I felt something in my head was like, "Oh, look at the closet." As I turned around, my hangers start moving, like somebody is looking for clothes. I stood frozen. When I could react, I ran out of my room and went to go tell my mom. My mom was like, "Oh no, you're probably just imagining things." It was probably just the AC. It was probably just the wind. But there was nothing on no fans. Nothing that could explain that. After that, I can't remember much. Just being really scared of being alone. I was really terrified of my closet. I would close my closet at night, wake up, and the part of the closet was open. It was a sliding door closet. It was open, like if somebody could peek through. I would gaslight myself, oh, maybe I didn't close it right. But now thinking back on it, I would close my closet right, because I was very scared. I was in 4th grade when I actually started seeing whatever was in the house. My dad had an office room. Our hallway was really long. It just had doors. I was sitting there in my room watching TV. My dad was in his office earlier. I never saw him leave. But all of a sudden, I did see him walk by. I was going to ask my dad, hey, can I play pinball on the computer? Or go on Club Penguin? I walked into the office. It was just pitch black. When I had just seen whatever that figure was walk into that room, that's when I was like, there's something wrong in this house. I saw that figure go into the room. Since the hallway was dark, the room was dark, I didn't make note of it. I didn't think, but as I walked up to the door was shut when I opened it. The room was completely pitch black. There was nobody in there. I ran to the garage, told my dad. My dad is a very non-believer. And he was like, no, it's just in your head. You're watching movies, I told my mom. I feel like my mom always knew what was going on in that house. She would always try to keep it calm by telling me. It was just my imagination. I continued to see shadows out of the corners of my eyes or the closet. I would hear noises in the closet, rustling, things like that. We left to Mexico for vacation, and we came back. I overheard this conversation. My uncle was telling my mom that in my room in the closet he heard voices. He heard rustling. He felt something, a very negative presence watching him. My mom was like, oh, it's just our sister, because her sister had passed away. My uncle was like, no, that is not a presence of our family. That is the presence of something bad. My mom chose to blow it off. Later on, I think I was in 6th grade. I don't remember a lot of stuff. Maybe I blocked it out because I was so scared. I used to love watching a haunting. I was sitting there watching with my dog. I started hearing my dog. She was growling at the hallway. I was like, what's wrong? She stopped. I continued to watch TV. Then she starts barking like crazy. I looked up and I saw this tall, dark figure walk from that office room to my parents' room. My dog was going crazy, barking, barking, barking. I grabbed her and I went outside and I was like, hey, this is what I saw. They always wanted to tell me that's not what you saw, that it was just in my head or in my imagination. I know it was it. After that, things started to pick up a lot. I started feeling things touch me and whisper right next to me. There was this one instance. My sister had come over. She was healing the relationship with our family. I was babysitting her son. He was toddler age 2 or 3. She left him in his playpen. They had all left to Walmart. I was left alone. I was in my bedroom cleaning, getting ready for school the next day. 'Cause it's Sunday, I felt like when somebody walks behind you. But somebody small. I thought it was my nephew. I was like, oh. He climbed out of his playpen's gonna go play. Next to my closet where I have all the toys, I start hearing rustling where my backpack was. Where all the toys were, I was like, hey, baby, stop doing that. It just continued. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw his figure, a small little figure there. I was like, hey, you need to stop. Don't rip my stuff. I walk from my bed to where the closet is. There was nothing. I immediately ran out and went to go see where he was. He was sleeping in his playpen. I picked him up and ran outside and called my sister. "Hey, you need to get home right now." I don't remember being this hysterical, but my sister said I was crying, screaming, telling her to come home. She came home as fast as she could and calmed me down. She didn't gaslight me. She knew what was going on in the house. She knew what was happening. Time goes by, we're moving out of this house. It was during recession, we were going to Mexico. I was packing my stuff. The same way my closet was open in the 3rd grade. The same everything I was doing, the same. I looked up again. My hangers were just moving. I was so mad at the circumstances of moving to a new country. I told that you need to stop. You need to leave me alone. I was so mad it just stopped. Those moving hangers just stopped. Completely stopped. It was shaking, and it stopped. Right before moving out, my mom was sitting down on the couch. We were watching novellas. I got upset at her. I left to my room and locked the door. I was sitting there writing in my diary. All of a sudden, I just feel my room shake like an earthquake. We used to have this religious figure. It was L.A. Virgin Maria. She's holding baby Jesus. And they're started rocking back and forth as soon as everything stops. I get up, run to my mom, and I'm like, "Hey, Mom, there was an earthquake. There was an earthquake." My mom just looks at me. She's like, "What are you talking about? Are you okay? What's going on?" I explained to her. She just was like, "Okay, we'll pray together." That's when my mom started really realizing that I wasn't lying. She knew the whole time. Fast forward to us being adults, living in a new house. We were all sitting down. I started telling my mom, "Remember when you would gaslight me so much about this house?" My sister starts laughing. They start laughing. They're like, "We all experienced stuff in that house. They just wanted to protect me, have me not be afraid." My sisters, they decided to play summoning games, mirror games, Ouija board in that room. The closet used to have mirror doors. After the seminary games, she dreamt about a demon, a presence trying to suck her into the mirror. She woke up with scratches on her cheeks. I think when my sisters played those summoning games, those mirror games, that Ouija board, they let something out. It wasn't good. I don't know if it was a demon, but it liked to mess with me. I liked to cause fear to make itself known. It was really scary. My mom, she tells me that in that room, she was never able to sleep. She felt like something was there. A negative, nasty presence watching her. My sister, when she would come over, she wouldn't sleep in there either. Everybody who stayed at that house, that was family. Not family. They always said the same thing. They heard ruffling in the closet or a voice, a really strong, negative energy watching upon them while they sleep. Whatever it was, it's still in that house right now. That house, it's alone. Nobody lives in there. There's abandoned cars there. Somebody owns it, but I don't think anybody stays or resides there anymore. I've never been back to that house. I did go back to my friend's house. He lives next door. We were waiting. I forgot before my friend was like, "Let's play Ouija board, come on. It'll be fun." I said, "Okay, that's fine." We started to play. It's going smoothly. We look up protection. We do it in a safe way, but all of a sudden, the mood changes when my friend asks it the question, "Hey, do you know us?" It says yes. We ask it, "How long have you known us?" It doesn't reply. We asked, "Have you known us since we were kids?" "Yes. I've started to feel exactly how I felt in that house. That same presence that I always felt. I don't know what it was, just a negative, dark presence," I told my friend. "We need to stop. We need to stop playing this. Whatever was in that house is channeling through your house. We need to stop." When we stopped, we closed everything, said goodbye, but I still felt very uneasy, like I was being watched, the same way I hadn't felt in a long time. My friend was like, "Oh, you're fine, you're fine." I went home that day. I still felt the same way. Lights would flicker. I don't know if it was a coincidence. I started waking up at odd times. 3 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning. I started feeling scared. My friend was like, "You should go to somebody who does a cleansing." We did a cleansing. She said whatever was in that house before was trying to attach itself to me again. The curandera brujera. I don't know what to refer to her as, told me that. Not to play with those things because in my family, somebody had done brujeria to my dad. Whatever was out to hurt my dad was out to hurt us. I didn't know this, my mom. She did confirm that. My grandma and my aunt would do brujeria. They would do things like that. That's what the lady ended up advising me. That's why I feel like I believe a lot in that now. So later on, my mom met the lady that rented the home. She asked my mom, was there anything? Did anybody pass away in this house? My daughters are experiencing things that we can't explain. My mom said, I would just pray and be strong with your faith. In your religion, they can't hurt you. My mom didn't tell her what happened. It is not to scare her. She had just rented out the house. She was a single mom. She was happy. I still experience paranormal things. We moved into a different house. And this one wasn't as scary. It was comforting. We moved into a house and my dad works with word a lot. He was making my mom's friends a box for her ashes. Her ashes were in our house. I remember this night. They had took my door away because I was being a bad kid. I was falling asleep. My dog was barking at the hallway. I pushed him so he would stop. I woke up, he's still doing it. I decided to cover him with the blanket. As I'm falling asleep, I felt something. Like when your mom used to wake you up to go to school. If she would touch your face to wake you up. That's what it felt like somebody was doing to me. I brushed it off. I thought it was my dog. Then I felt it again. I opened my eyes. There was nothing in the room. My dog was just sitting there frozen. I think he was scared. He was silent. I was like looking everywhere. There was nothing in the room. We say it's that person, my mom's friend, because I used to call her grandma. I feel like in a way I was her coming to say bye. She never got to say bye to me. But that's a different experience. Not as scary as the ones in that house, where I felt things touching me or watching me. It's really scary to think. There's things out there that like to cause fear, that want to hurt you, especially when you're a child. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story, Don't Look Out Toward the Fields, a Paranormal. I am originally from the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. It's right on the Texas-Mexico border. The experience that I had that really got me into the paranormal was an evening at an aunt and uncle's house. It's built on top of these cinder blocks. It's a lifted wooden house. I grew up in a house like that too. We would always joke when it's cold outside. It's colder inside when it's hot outside. It's hotter inside. You can hear everything that's happening, just the way that those houses were built. Everything echoed. Growing up, we had barbecues all the time. There was always a carne asada happening. It seemed to rotate whose family was going to stay. When the barbecue ended, one evening, that was my family. It was my parents and myself. The barbecues ended. Everybody's gone except for my aunt and my uncle, my parents and myself. I was very young, maybe 6th grade or junior high. We were sitting in their kitchen. To paint that for you, if you can imagine it, the back of their house. There was a door to the backyard. Above the sink, there was a window where you could see what we call Monty. You could say it was like brush. Just trees and bushes and stuff. That's how the whole Rio Grande Valley is. It's a very agricultural area in the state. Imagine this house, sitting in the middle of all this empty land, with just fields and montes surrounding it. It was at night. My aunt starts telling my parents how she's worried. Because her sons are out, she's worried for their safety. Just general mother things. My parents try to calm her down, and they try to tell her you've raised good kids. Your sons have good heads on their shoulders. They have cell phones now. Not to age myself. People were just starting to get their own cell phones. My mom said they'll be fine. They're not going to drink and drive. And if they need help, they have our numbers. We can go pick them up or something. Mythia says I'm not worried about what they're doing. Out there, I know that they're fine. I know they're responsible. I'm worried about what happens when they try to come home. We're all very confused by this. 'Cause what does that mean? My parents ask her, what's going on when they're trying to get home? Mythia starts telling us the last couple times that her boys have gone out. When they get home, they will either tell their parents, or their parents would be awake. They would all experience it together. Just strange things would happen. They would hear voices or noises. When Matilda, she would stay up washing dishes late, looking out that back window into the monte. She could see shadows at night. When they'd go to check, there would be nobody there. Nobody would have reason to be out there. Again, it's in the middle of all this field land and stuff. There's no roads that go into that neighborhood. Just weird things started happening at night. As they're telling us this, we're sitting in their kitchen. It's a long table. My parents are on one side. My aunt and my uncle are on the other side. I'm at the head of the table. Opposite of me is their back door. She's telling us this, and in the middle of her, explaining these strange occurrences, that back door that I have a direct line of sight to starts shaking violently. The handle is metal, and it's jiggling like someone's trying to open it. And the door is being pulled back and forth in this wooden house. You could feel the whole room shaking. Everybody froze and was staring at the door. There is this 3-liter of soda next to me on the table, and I slowly pushed it in front of my face to hide myself from this door. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I had never really seen anything like that before. I don't know why I thought this would protect me. We're all frozen for a minute. And my uncle? He gets up. He's grumbling something under his breath. He goes to the door and he rips it open. There's nothing there. We're all even more silent. If that could happen. I'm petrified at this point. He says it was a dog. It was probably a dog just messing with the door. I saw when he opened the door. I couldn't look away even though I wanted to. And there was nothing there. I saw that there was nothing there. He closes the door and he sits back down. My aunt. She starts getting scared again. She says, "You see, that's what I'm talking about. I feel like there's something on this land. There's something out there. And I'm worried that something's gonna happen to the boys when they try to get home later." Again, as she's trying to explain this to us, the door starts shaking again, even harder this time. This entire time I couldn't move. I was frozen. I wanted to run to a different part of the house, but I was just scared to move again. This door is shaking violently back and forth. The handle, you can hear the metal jingling. My uncle gets up again, opens the door. This time, we see a dog. But the dog is running up to the door. It wasn't already there. He said, "It's the dog." It's the dog, throws the dog a scrap of leftover meat, closes the door, but I'm thinking no. I can see this all happening. The dog was running up to the door. They closes the door, sits down, and my uncle chimes in, and he's just trying to brush it off. Like it's just, there's stray dogs out here in the Monte. There's animals and stuff. It's probably coyotes or just trying to explain it away. He's a big skeptic. Okay, sure, animals. Even though we're not buying it. As he's talking about that, we hear the dog at the door whimper. Like when a dog gets hit, it starts to cry. We hear the cry getting fainter and fainter. The dog is running away. We can hear it running away again. The door starts to shake. My uncle was right there ready for it. He was waiting for it. He knew it was going to happen again. So he gets up, throws the door open again. There's nothing. By that third time, we had enough. The first time was enough for me. But I was at their mercy there. My parents, they drove us. I had to wait for them. By that third time, my parents were like, "Okay, we're gonna go. We'll pray for your kids." I don't know if they came up with the game plan or what the conversation was, but I was in escape mode. I was ready to get out of there. But also, that meant that I had to walk outside to the car, which I didn't want to do, because I don't know what's out there. Something's out there terrorizing us. And I think I just remember running to my parents' van and just jumping in and ready to go, and I've never been back to. That house, since that happened, that is definitely one of the biggest contributions to my interest in the paranormal. I think it's one of the biggest reasons why. I started my own podcast about the paranormal. On my show, it's called Sususto, and I tell scary stories from the folklore of Latin, American, and Hispanic cultures. Because aside from that one experience, I heard so many stories about lechuzas in L.A. Llorona, chupacabras El Cucuy, and so you can imagine, when this was happening that night, all these kind of legends, these monsters, they're running through my head. And I'm just going through this Rolodex of, okay, which one is it? Which one is it? Which one's coming after us right now? That moment in my life was a big, I think, contributing factor to starting Sous Chef. You know what, I really haven't told this story too much. On my own show, I think I've mentioned it a couple times, but I haven't gone into such great detail retelling it. Now I'm thinking about, I don't think I've ever had a real conversation with my parents about it. It was one of those things where it happened, and we just didn't really talk about it. I don't think any of us wanted to remember it. That's why I'm like this now. Share a story with our community by going to True. Scary story. Calm and tapping on the I have a story button. And we'll get in touch at Free versions of the show are available on Scary Plus. Come and you can get in touch with me over on Instagram as Edwin Cove. That's EDWINCOV. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Everyone, see you. Please listen to the story Daughter's Dreams. My name is Edmund, and here is Brandon's true scary story. All this started happening a month ago. I live in Ambridge, Pennsylvania, which is about 30 minutes north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's a really industrial kind of city. Everything's old and dated looking. It's mostly coal steel mines and construction places. I moved there last year, went through a divorce, found this apartment that is a really old building. It's really small, and right off of one of the main streets in Ambridge. I took it out of desperation. It was either that or move to Georgia with my family. I wanted to stay in Pennsylvania, my daughter's here, by moving to this apartment. Nothing much really happens for the first year. A month ago, I go to pick my daughter up from daycare. We're about halfway home at this point. My daughter starts telling me about this dream she has, where she's at her mom's house. These bad guys are opening up doors to her bedroom and the door that leads to her mom's room. These bad guys approach her, cut her face and her mom's face. I knew to take this kind of seriously. This dream that she was having. I knew it was more than just a nightmare. I've always been a spiritually sensitive person. My family is sensitive to it. I asked her, what do these bad guys look like? One is a ghost, and another one is a monster. That really disturbed me. Just hearing that. My 3.5-year-old daughter is having these visions that she's seeing this happen. I didn't really have a response at the moment. I was awestruck. I changed the subject, but she just talked about it so nonchalantly. It just rolled off her tongue. I knew that this was something that a child her age can't make up on their own. I brought it up to her mom. Her mom kind of seemed to dismiss it. She's more of a skeptic. She thinks that it could just be her imagination, or she's having bad dreams. When I told my mom told me that I should do a cleanse of the apartment. She agreed with me. She agreed that there was no way for her to make that up. She thinks it could have been some kind of malevolent, demonic entity trying to attach itself to her. Those malevolent entities like to attach themselves to people who are in really vulnerable moments, times of despair or trauma, especially to children, because children are naturally more perceptive to the paranormal. Child of divorce seems like a good target for malevolent spirits. So I get her home that night, and it was almost instantaneous. The air in my apartment felt heavy. I live on the 3rd floor, the very top floor of this little apartment building. I didn't feel any tension or negativity until we got into my apartment. It was heavy. It was tense. It felt like any positivity was just being drained. From it, I could feel myself and my daughter. We both seemed to be getting angrier a lot quicker, easily frustrated and agitated. I kept having this looming anxiety the whole time. It kept lingering like that saying, when you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's what it felt like. I was in that anxious anticipation. I knew something was there, that something could happen. A few days go by of that feeling. Nothing really happens until one night. I put my daughter in bed. I do my nightly routine. I stay up for a little play, some video games, take a shower, all that stuff to wind down for bed. I get in bed and start drifting off to sleep. Start going into the onset of sleep paralysis, which I never experienced before. I do have sleep apnea. I have a feel for what sleep issues are like. I used to wake up a lot at night, but as soon as I got myself in bed, I was laying on my back while the CPAP started going. I start closing my eyes to drift asleep, and all of a sudden, my limbs start feeling really stiff and heavy, almost to the point of numbness. I wasn't in control of my body for a bit. I thought of paranormal stuff, in the association with sleep paralysis. Maybe if I can muster some kind of strength to move my body, I can break the sleep paralysis before it gets too bad. If I start trying to move one of my arms, I'm able to grab the closest thing to me, my phone that grounds me, and do my best to stay calm and not to panic. I'm able to sleep fine after. A few nights pass, and no other sleep paralysis incidents like that happen. But that tense feeling, that anticipation was still all there. I was so anxious. If my daughter woke up in the night crying, I would wake up, but I would just be frozen in fear. Part of me and my gut had this thought: if I go in there, what's going to be in there with her? I'm able to get up, I go in and I check on her. I see nothing. I'm able to calm her, tell her everything's okay, and go back to sleep. I'm still left in that state of fear of whatever's in there in that apartment with us. A week after the first sleep paralysis incident, I put her to bed, did my own thing for a couple hours, went to bed. I wake up and I have no idea what time of night it is. I didn't check my phone. I just naturally woke up from a dream. I look over from the foot of my bed, and on the wall to my right of that door frame is a shadow figure. My room's pitch black. It was blacker than that black. Absence of light completely. It had no discernible facial features. I couldn't see eyes, limbs, or anything. It just looked like a silhouette of someone's shadow being projected. I could tell it was looking at me. I just had that feeling. It was about the height of a child, probably 3.5, no taller than 4 feet tall, just staring there at me. My daughter's bedroom door is closed. I just knew what it was. I knew it was something malevolent. I knew it was something that wanted to feed off of whatever negativity there was, instead of speaking or trying to turn on the light and cast it out. I chose to ignore it and not show any kind of fear. I've always thought that if you feed into the sense of fear that they're trying to project onto you, that makes them stronger. I ignore it. I do my best to go back to sleep. When I wake up at my normal time, Shas a.m., to start getting my daughter ready for daycare and myself ready for work, it's gone. There's no trace of it whatsoever. Never would have even known it was there if I hadn't seen it myself. No other real encounters happened for a little while. Up next, as he comes across a medium, he gets a stern warning: stay with us. I was working on the process of moving in with my girlfriend the next weekend that I didn't have my daughter, and she was at her mom's. My girlfriend and I go to a flea market together. I like to look at antiques, old video games, and try to restore them. There happens to be a medium there. My girlfriend and I get to talking to her, making small talk, and learning more about her profession. I go back after that talk to the medium alone, tell her about my daughter's dreams and the kind of happenings that are going on. She gets this concerned look on her face, says you need to cleanse like now. She confirmed there is no way that a child her age has the kind of imagination to come up with what she's seen. In that level of detail, it was something strictly evil that was trying to attach itself to her, and it wanted to follow her from house to house. She suggested that both myself, and her mother should cleanse our respective houses. I buy sage and a smudging feather off of her. She gives me a bottle, a little cork bottle of holy oil for free, tells me to anoint my doorframe to my apartment with the shape of a cross, using the oil, and to recite the Lord's Prayer while I'm doing it. And I'll do the same thing with my daughter's forehead. The next time that I saw her, I told my mom that I had spoken with a medium. She said the medium was right, that after I do the cleanse, to close all the windows again, and put salt at the doorway and on the windowsills, to act as a seal, to keep the bad spirits from coming back in again. The next day, my girlfriend and I, after her kid goes down for his nap, we go to my apartment and get ready to do the cleanse. First, we saged ourselves once we got in, to keep any negativity from attaching onto us, to keep the spirits at bay. We put the sage in the dish and take the smudging feather, and I start walking around the apartment in a clockwise direction, just like the medium suggested that I do. I keep saying this prayer to cast out all negative spirits and energy, to bring love and peace back into the house by making the circle around the apartment. I get done with my daughter's room as soon as I go into the living room and start doing the cleanse. The front door that we left wide open, slammed itself shut out of nowhere, loud slammed with some force. I asked my girlfriend if she shut the door while I was cleansing. She tells me no, but I just saw it close itself. We finished the cleanse. We do the anointing with the holy oil, say the Lord's Prayer. We even anointed my daughter's door frames to her room, just to be safe, and left after that. I didn't go back to that apartment until the next day, when I had to pick my daughter back up from daycare. I put the oil on her forehead, say a prayer. She asks me what I'm doing. I tell her, this is to keep all negative things away from you, to keep you safe and happy. She goes, oh, okay, that's good, goes off on her own thing. Ever since then, there's never been an encounter. I haven't heard my daughter talk about nightmares or anything. The overall tension in the air, that whole feeling of negativity has gone away. It seemed like it worked, and I found out a couple things after the cleanse was done. Before the cleanse happened, whenever my daughter would wake up, in the middle of the night, her covers would be pulled off her or on the floor, or her stuffed animals that she slept with would also be on the floor. She has a toddler bed that has a guardrail by her side, that she sleeps if those were to fall. She would have to throw them, which maybe she did in her sleep too. But it is interesting to see that. That stopped happening after the cleanse. I do think that whatever was in there may have been doing that to mess with her in some way or to get to her, try to get attention. I did research on my apartment over in Ambrose. When I looked up the house history, I couldn't find anything on anyone who died there. I did find out it was built in 1914, but it's almost 110 years old and is seated right next to a funeral home. There's actually 2 parking lots. There's one parking lot at the building, for the funeral home specifically, and another parking lot for tenants. The combination of an old building in a really old, almost run-down city. That happens to be next door to a funeral home. Just gives it a more creepy vibe, and makes it seem like it could be more of a hotspot for paranormal things. I think it was something malevolent. I don't think it was a ghost at all. I don't think I've ever heard of or read anything about a ghost appearing, that solid black of a mass. I have heard that usually demonic entities will appear as shadows. That dark and I have seen ghosts before, too. In the past, I've been able to make that mental comparison. When I saw it, it was something evil or demonic, trying to attach itself to my daughter, who had been going through the trauma that she had been going through. In the past year, when I talked to my mom about it, she asked if her mom or I watch any scary movies while she's in bed. Or maybe she hears stuff I told her no. I would never watch anything like that when my daughter's around. My mom is a spiritual person. She's almost Wiccan, but she practices more the light side of it, healing. Cleansing, she does talk to spirits, mainly my grandfather, her dad, that died a few years ago, when I told her about the cleanse that we were going to do to get rid of the spirit attacking my daughter and me. She brought out divination rods while I was on the phone with her. They're dowsing rods. People have used them to also talk to spirits. The concept that if you let go of the rods, the spirits will manipulate them and move them to kind of make signs. She brought out divination rods, started talking to my grandfather through them. Every time I started talking, she had me on speakerphone. The rods would point to me. I asked if my grandfather had seen her before, in their old house when we used to visit after he died. They said yes. My mom asked if my grandfather would offer some kind of comfort or help protect my daughter and me to drive this bad spirit out. The rods were again pointing to yes. It did kind of bring a comfort and kind of relieve some of my anxiety. Just knowing that, even though I was going to my apartment to cast out something evil, potentially demonic that I had helped to, on the other side in the form of my grandfather wanting to still watch over me and his great-granddaughter. It all stopped kind of suddenly and abruptly, like after the cleanse. She hasn't said that she's seen anything or had any dreams like that since. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story, A Bad Feeling. It was on July of 1987. I lived in the Pacific Northwest. It was it during the summer. So it's really hot. It was July. It's really humid where I lived at the time. And it was about 12. I was on summer break alone. So I was alone in the house. They knew it was going to be really hot, so I wanted to make sure all the doors and windows were closed because we didn't have air conditioning. My grandpa, who was in the hospital in California at that time, but they said he was pretty stable. My Nana, who's his wife, my grandmother, she was at home. She wasn't going to visit in the hospital that day. My uncle was over taking care of her. It was in the morning too, but it was already starting to get warm out. I started doing my chores, the dishes, when then I started vacuuming. And then I felt this really sharp tap, like someone poking on my back. I felt it a few times, and I was home alone in the house. I don't have any siblings. I turned around, and there was no one there. There was no one else in the house. The living room got really cold. All of a sudden, I had a really bad feeling. So I turned off the vacuum, and then I went. I just went outside for a little bit to warm up, and I did not vacuum the rest of the day. The run at same time in California is around 10:30. My Nana got a really bad feeling, and she went straight back to the hospital. She told me that when she got there. She took my grandfather's hands, and he opened his eyes. And then he passed away. It happened at the same time that I got tapped on the shoulder, because I remember them telling me it was around 11. I looked at the clock at our house, and it was 11 too. My mom got home and she said, "I have to tell you something." And she was pretty sad, but I already knew. I don't know how, but I just knew what she was going to tell me. I didn't vacuum for a long time after that. I'm in my 40s now, and even when I'm vacuuming in my house by myself, I leave a door open even if it's snowing here. I'm so still terrified. Like 30 years later that this is going to happen again. My Nana said that she felt for the next year or so that, and my grandfather would send her messages, but no one in my family believed her, 'cause I just thought, she's just the grieving widow and making stuff up. But then in this time, it's a couple years later in like 1989, my Nana was going to go visit my great aunt, who was in San Francisco. She was getting in the car, and she said, my grandpa spoke to her and told her not to go. She got out of the car and she called my great aunt. And they said, they calculated that the time it would have happened, she would have been on the bridge. And the time it collapsed, I don't know if you ever knew that, about the Bay Bridge collapsing. It was just toppled down onto another layer of the bridge, and hundreds of people died. It's really tragic. As with most of our calls go, I asked Tara if she had any more experiences, and she thought of one more. Here it is. My friend's friends got in 7th grade. It was summer. Got like a Ouija board, which my mom always told me, do not mess with those. Do not bring it in my house. I wasn't going to bring it in the house, but I went over to a friend of a friend's house. There's this girl, and she was just a little off. There was just something weird about her. But my best friend was with me, and it was daytime. I figured it would be okay. So we went over to her house, and we started playing with it. She started asking it questions. What's your name? Are you from here? Are you a bad spirit? And it said yes. So I was done at that point. I was like, okay, we should stop fighting like this. But she wanted to keep going, which was a little unnerving. So then she just kept asking it questions. Then my other friend was like, okay, we just need to stop this now, because we're inviting something bad into the house. We stopped, and we said goodbye. And then all the magnets on her fridge flew off the fridge to the other side of the house. I've never seen anything like. It was terrifying, and the house got really cold. We got up and pretty much ran out of the house, and I never played with her again. I think she disappeared a couple years later. She just stopped coming to school, but yeah, just a really bad vibe for her. Don't leave just yet, since today's stories are short. I am publishing 3 in total. Have you listened to them yet? They're up and available now as separate episodes. Also remember, you can share your own story with me over on True, scarystory.com, for your chance to have it featured. On an upcoming episode to listen ad-free, try out Scary Plus over on scaryplus.com. Completely free for 14 days, and then $4.99 a month, and you can cancel whenever you want. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story Footprints and Walking in the Dark. I grew up in the Philippines. I moved to the U.S. 13 years ago. I was around 23 when I migrated. I spent my childhood and early adulthood back home. In the Philippines, a lot of people believe in ghosts, mythical creatures, spirits. My very first memory was when I was 7 years old, when I used to live in a town called Muntinlupa City, which is in the Metro Manila area. I remember our house being huge, but as a child, everything is bigger than us. I remember having a big living room that led to the kitchen and stairs that went up to the second floor, with 2 big bedrooms. My parents would sleep on their bed, and me and my 2 younger brothers. and Grandma would sleep on the floor in the same bedroom. And this is pretty much a cultural thing, where extended families could still be living with you. Most households are like this anyways. The second bedroom. We were renting it to 2 other girls, and one time one of the renters went on vacation and the renter asked me if I could sleep in their bedroom. I got so excited because I get to sleep on a bed by myself. That night I got ready for bed, and I remember I fell asleep right away. Eventually, for some reason, I woke up in the middle of the night. I know it was late because I could tell that my parents' bedroom lights were off. However, I can hear people downstairs. There was some party of some sort. I can hear someone going up and down the stairs. I can hear people talking. I can even hear music playing. I wanted to shout and call my mom, but every time I would open my mouth, there was nothing coming out. I can't even whisper. There was a coat hanger close to the door. A big hat and hoodies were hanging on the coat rack. I could see a set of ice. They don't look like normal eyes, though, as they are just red, big, bright red eyes. I was so scared. I decided to cover myself with a blanket and prayed until I fell asleep. I told my mother what happened the next day, and she believed me. She said there was a thick that night. Ethic is a bird-like creatures of death that prowl the night in search for food. So that's one of Filipino mythical creatures that we believe in. Eventually, me and my family moved out of the house and moved to another city. My parents received a piece of land from their godparents and built a small house. Next to our house is my grandparents' house, and they just started building their own house there as well. I have so many stories from this house, from the moment we moved in, as they were building my grandparents' house, and up until everything was done. Me and my family were experiencing a lot of unexplainable things. The most unforgettable one was during time, when they were still building my grandparents' house. I was probably a teenager by this time, maybe around 13 or 14. I remember this was in the middle of the day. We just got done eating lunch. One of the construction workers started looking at our shoes and flip-flops right outside the door of our house. My mother was like, "What are you doing? What are you looking for?" The guy was not happy. He said that he just laid fresh cement on the stairs, and someone used the stairs and left footprints on the wet cement. My mom was not happy with that accusation, so me, my mom, and my other grandma, we went to go and check it out. When we got to my grandparents' house, we all saw little footprints on the wet cement, on the stairs. Whoever it was, whatever it was, left footprints on at least 3 to 4 steps from the second floor, where the bedrooms are down. It looked like it was coming down from the second floor, and it just gave us goosebumps. Goosebumps will crawl from the back of my neck. I think the footprints, they look like they're about the size of a year, or 2-year-old infant actual baby. We all don't know how to react. I remember my other grandma and my mom seeing their hair standing on their arms, and the construction worker was just laughing because, he saw the sizes of our shoes and our flip-flops. They're not. They're too big for that size of the footprints. Whatever is on the wet cement, it's just too big. Can't be ours. And plus, we know we would get in trouble, so we would not do anything like that. Maybe after a year or 2, my grandparents' house was constructed. I can't remember the reason, but I spent the night at my grandma's and slept in one of my aunt's bedrooms. I remember she has a queen-size bed. My aunt's queen-size bed was next to the wall, and she slept on the side, next to the wall, while I slept on the side that was closer to the door. In the middle of that night, I felt something was slowly moving my arm. It was holding me from my wrist, and I remember feeling the thumb and the middle finger on my wrist. It slowly lifted up my arm, and I felt it, so I turned around to my other side, where my aunt was lying down, and she was just asleep, so there was no way it was her that grabbed me. I didn't think much of it. I told my mother the next day, but I don't think she believed me at the time, saying that it was just probably a dream. When my aunt, who was living in Japan, came home for a visit, I spent the night in her bedroom, and when we woke up the next morning, there were baby handprints and lip marks on the mirror, and we know it's their baby's prints, handprints and lip marks, because they're so tiny, like literally baby handprint, same as the size, like as tiny as those footprints that we saw on the cement. A little backstory. Years prior to completing the construction of the house, my aunt, who was living in Japan, she had a miscarriage. That was supposedly her first child, and we believe it might be that baby. Maybe trying to communicate, possibly looking for love, being playful and saying, "Hey, I'm still around." When she had a miscarriage, they had to put the baby in a box for maybe a week or two and left it at their house as they were trying to prepare for the funeral. For the baby, I feel like that was a mistake, because why would you just leave the baby by itself without, I don't know, I just thought that was wrong. I felt like the baby should have been put to rest as early as possible. But it's nobody's fault, it's just different. That Filipinos just handle death differently. In the Philippines, it typically takes weeks to put our dead people to rest. This upcoming story deals with another visitor at night. The story is called Walking in the Dark, and it is coming up right after this stay with us. Here it is. This is Olivia's true scary story. The house that I grew up in always consisted of myself, my mom, my aunt, and my grandmother. There wasn't really anything scary about this house. We would get the occasional movement of a glass. Sometimes you would hear things, but you never thought anything of it. You just push it off as, oh, it's nothing, not really thinking about it. Was until when I got into middle school, is when I started believing more and more that there's something other than us in this world. It was morning, early morning. I was getting ready to go to school. My mom was getting ready to go to work. So was my aunt. My grandmother was still sleeping. Nice little October day. As I was getting ready, my mom had got me all situated and everything, and she was like, "I'm gonna go finish getting ready." She was in the other bathroom, so I was like, okay. My aunt was in her room, getting ready. Grandma was still asleep. I thought that I had heard something before, but like rustling in the living room. But I thought maybe it's just my mom. She forgot something. Or I'm hearing it come from the bathroom, because I knew she was in there, and so was my hand in her room. So then all of a sudden I heard like this rustling, like pants, like jeans, and how they make those noises of that rustling sound of movement in the living room. It started right in the middle of the living room. In our living room, once you walked in the front door, it was set up as you walked in. The living room is right there as you walked in. Then you walk a little bit more too. On your right side, you come in and there's 2 rooms and a bathroom. Go the other direction on your left. You have the living room, and that was carpeted. And then, after you go past the living room, there was the linoleum floor to get into the kitchen. And then after that was the last bedroom and bathroom. So it started out in the middle of the living room. This pant sounds like rustling movement. And I even called out, and I told cause I thought it was my mom. And I was like, "You're still there, huh?" I heard nothing. The footsteps and the rustling came to the very edge of where the carbon linoleum meet. So I didn't move, because I thought maybe I'll get a response. And I didn't get any kind of response whatsoever. And at this point, I'm like scared beyond compare. Like I didn't even move, because I didn't move. I didn't look, because I didn't want to see what I might see. Finally, I was like, okay. I'm like, I gotta go and get up, and I gotta look, and I gotta see what's going on. Who is in the living room that's playing with me? I go towards the little entryway into where the arch is, into the kitchen. I look, there's nothing. There's no one. There's nothing. My mom is still in the bathroom. My aunt is still getting ready in her room. I go sit down because I'm like, this is beyond freaky. I'm like, how? So then my mom comes and she's like, what's wrong? So I started telling her what I heard and she's like, what? I go, yeah. I said wrestling. I even animated the noise. I said because this is what I'm hearing. I said, but then, when I went to go look, I said, there was nothing, there's nobody. So she equally got freaked out as much as I did. My room on the doorway had those beads that everybody had at one point, because everybody thought that they were cool. I had those, and I had them on my doorway. And every time you moved or you pulled them aside, they would make that nice little sound of like beads rustling. So anytime they moved them, they would make noise at that time. I also had an inflatable chair that no matter what, that thing always deflated. No matter what I did, it always deflated. It was just one of those chairs. Every night, I would always put like my bedding on top of that chair, that inflatable chair, because I had nowhere else to put it. But I always made sure that I always moved it away from the wall, so that way it wouldn't like squink or get rubbed or anything against the wall and freak anybody out. So this one particular night, we had all gotten ready for bed and everything. My mom was the last to get ready for bed. I could see her, I could hear her and everything. And then finally she was like, night. We're all like night. Maybe 10-15 minutes later, I hear that rustling sound again, like somebody is walking. In our hall leading into our bedrooms was all carpet. You could hear it even more. And I was like, maybe it's my mom. I'm like, maybe she forgot something, or maybe she, instead of going all the way back to the other side of the house, where her bedroom was, she just needed to come back and grab water, or something. But then I heard the beads on my doorway, like they kind of parted, and as they parted, you can hear that beating, moving, and clinking together. It was very light, but I could still hear it. I opened one eye, because I was like, really? I'm like, maybe she forgot something. I looked, and I opened my eye, and I could see 4 of the strings of beads from my doorway, swaying back and forth. I got freaked out at this point. I'm like, maybe she touched it on her way. But mind you, that was like maybe 10-15 minutes before. I'm like, I'm not gonna think about it. It's late. I'm just gonna go to sleep. Again, I hear rustling, like actual somebody's walking. It starts from my doorway, moves past my TV to that inflammable chair that I have. I hear somebody as if somebody sat down in this chair. As you sat down in this chair, sometimes if you were against the wall and even though you were away from the wall, the way that you sat down, you would still somehow back up. So you would hear that squeaking sound of the chair, rubbing up against the wall. I'm at this point so scared out of my mind. I don't look. I don't call out. I don't do anything. I cover my head, scared as all can be, and I just leave it. So I think I must have fallen asleep. Next morning, I wake up. It's the week. It's a Saturday morning. I wake up, and as soon as I wake up, I instantly remember what I heard the night before. I'm like, I gotta check out this chair. Sure enough, it is like somebody had sat in the chair because it was pushed up against the wall, which I had known that. I hadn't pushed it against the wall the night before, and like no way could my mom have come back, touched those beads, and then left without me hearing her or seeing her. I told my mom and my aunt the next morning. They were freaked out. I was freaked out, or like, yep. Nope, we're not. And we're like, maybe because my grandfather had passed away years ago when I was the age of 2. And they have a theory, I have this theory, that maybe it was my grandfather checking on me, making sure that I was okay. Wasn't until a couple years after that, after I graduated, after I got finished with middle school, and then graduated from high school. We ended up moving to a new house, newly built, so I knew that it didn't have anything. And all of a sudden, we were all sitting there one day around the table. In our dining room table, my mom, my aunt, me, my grandmother. The doorbell rings. We look, there's nobody. But it wasn't like the hard doorbell ring as I feel like sit really super hard. Makes that really loud doorbell he knows. One of us went to go look. There is nobody there. Again. I think that it was my grandfather checking on us again, just saying, hey, I'm here. Thank you very much for listening. See you soon. See you soon. See you. Please listen to the story, The Girl with Black Hair. My story begins after my parents' divorce. They wanted to co-parent and live in the same house. They decided to move to a new city in Valencia, Venezuela, around 2006. 2007, we finally settled in this house. That was really close to my new school. This house was inside a gated neighborhood. Our house was the last one on the street and had a koi pond, a huge tree in the entrance that made the house look more shaded. It was a big, one-story house with 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. Right when we came inside, the house gave me a really weird, creepy vibe. My room was next to my dad's bathroom and bedroom. My dad's bathroom had a big, cool shower that had glass doors. There was no roof, only a mesh roof. But a still rainwater and small leaves will get inside. Sometimes I really like taking showers there. I had to get inside my dad's room to use the bathroom, and I always felt like there was a really welcoming, bad vibe in his room. It was always the coldest room in the whole house. I didn't like being in his room because of that. I used to enter and leave in a rush every time I use his bathroom. When we moved, we had some boxes and things in the studio go missing. My mom couldn't find an error again. My mom and my siblings started seeing black shadows. In different parts of the house, we always have the feeling of being watched, and an unwelcome feeling. There was this day, I was in the studio using the computer. You could see the studio through a window. In the living room, my brother was in the living room. when he saw a man behind me, watching what I was doing. One afternoon, I was in my room, doing my homework and listening to music. Suddenly, I heard someone pounding with their face on my window. Really hard. I was really scared. I was frozen for a moment, until I thought maybe someone was breaking into the house. It had happened before I opened the window, but I didn't see anything. I decided to look in the backyard, since you could see the backyard from my window. I saw a woman running really fast to her right. She had long hair. She was wearing a long dress. She was translucent. There was this time that I was checking myself in the mirror instead of seeing my reflection. I saw someone else. It quickly disappeared. I stay in the house while my mom went out for groceries. I was doing my homework, and suddenly I felt someone watching me. The air felt heavy. I got really scared. But I call my mom when I call her. Someone growled really close to me. I ran and waited outside my house until my mom arrived. Another time I was in my mom's room, when suddenly I had chills on my whole body, and I felt someone scratch my arm. I experienced a lot of sleep paralysis in this house. My sister also had a few experiences in this house. She was in her room with her family dog when he started growling and barking. My sister saw a girl with black hair and white dress walking around and disappeared quickly. During a thunderstorm on this day, my sister was in the bathroom, and when she stepped out, lightning struck nearby. The lights dimmed, and when it came back, she saw the air again. There was a fire that occurred once. For some unknown reason, luckily, a gardener and other neighbors helped, taking the fire down. After all these occurrences, we had a friend whose aunt read tarot cards. I was really skeptical when she read mine. She said there was an evil entity sent from an ex-girlfriend of my dad. She was a Santara. She sent evil spirits to keep us away from my dad because she was jealous of my mom, my sister and I relationship. And there was one spirit that was in love with my dad. They also mentioned that I had a third eye. And I was able to feel more of these paranormal activities. A few months later, we have to move out because our lease had ended. We moved to a new house, which was a relief. But things didn't stop. My mom was in the kitchen. She saw this girl with black hair and white long dress. She thought it was me, and she was asking her to put away the groceries. But she ignored her and then disappeared. I was always a target when I was doing my homework. This time, the girl walked in the hallway in front of my room and quickly disappeared again. It's another time that I was really upset. I was ripping some old pictures, and I was going to harm myself with a small scissor. I went through depression and had a tendency to self-harm. During these years, I had it on my table, the seizure, but suddenly it moved away and it fell on the ground. It was really strange, because I thought, did I move it by accident? But it was not in the edge of the table. I didn't feel anything strange, but I don't know, maybe somebody was trying to protect me, or maybe something was just there, tried to do something and just fell. After these things stopped happening, my dad, he just didn't believe us, and he thinks that we were just crazy. My mom, she really thinks something. What's going on in the house? And she had her experiences. Not as much as me and my sister. We're like the ones that had more things. My family, they all believe that something was going on in that house. I talked to a friend. He was a neighbor in that first house. He says there was something going on in the house, but they didn't know what happened. The owners of the house. They sell it for a cooking class. That didn't work after they did a clandestine casino. Now it's a restaurant. Up next, if you want to listen to even more ghost stories, check out our other show hosted by Michelle. The cover looks like a newspaper clipping. Real callers and very creepy. Thank you very much for listening. See you soon. Please listen to the story, The Yellow House. We live out in the country. It's kind of country. We have cornfields, hayfields, and cotton fields. Whenever that time comes around. It's a 2-story house, and when you walk in the back door, you have stairs that lead straight up. It's our rooms on the top, and the restroom is right by the stairway. If you walk straight, my room is right there to the left. I was asleep. It was 2:30 in the morning, somewhere around that time. I had got up to go to the restroom. I was walking, and I always look down the stairs. Why, I don't know. But I always look down the stairs. I thought I saw a shadow, but I was half asleep. So I was like, maybe I'm not seeing things right. Something's going on. There's my mind playing tricks on me. Finally squinted my eyes and looked even closer. When I did that, I saw on our staircase a big black shadow. It looked like it was about 6 foot, real broad and shoulders kind of buff. That's how it looked. They were leaning against the stairs. Am I seeing that maybe it's just my imagination? Then I saw them walk to the side, from the side of the stairs to the front. Where you come up. I saw it start walking up, and I was like, oh my God. This is not my imagination. I ran in the restroom because I was right there. But when I finally came out of the restroom, I turned my head, looked down the stairs again. I saw the shadow walking up. I ran to my room. I closed the door. I called my husband. Can you please come home from work? I'm so scared. I saw something. Something is not right. This is not how it's supposed to be. I'm freaking out. I just need you to come home, please. Like, make sure everything's okay. When my husband came home, he said that he didn't see anything. Everything was fine. So I told my mom about it. My mom actually prayed over the house. Her and my husband felt the hair on the back of their neck stand up. They know I don't know what it is. We couldn't figure out why I would see something. My sister, her and her boyfriend at the time were having problems. They had separated. She went to go spend the night at a friend's house. That morning the friend woke up and told my sister that he had a dream. He saw this big black shadow. He described the shadow to me, and it was the exact same way. I saw the shadow here at my mom's house, coming up the stairs. How can I see the shadow? And then you see that same shadow. My sister and her ex-boyfriend at the time, they worked everything out. They were together. My sister said that she had woke up. She saw a shadow on the wall. The way she described it was the same shadow that I saw. The same shadow that her friend has saw in his dream. The only person who saw it more than once was my sister. But it was before I had saw it. She had always thought that she was just seeing things. When she had told her boyfriend about it, he goes, oh yeah, that's the shadow that I've seen before. That shadow has been following me for years. I don't know why. My mom prayed over everybody. She prayed over my sister's apartment. But we never saw the shadow again. But we could never figure out why. All 3 of us saw that shadow when it was supposed to be following the boyfriend. At the time, we didn't understand what's going on. that we've all seen it. My mom was like, maybe someone put a voodoo doll on him. That was our first instinct. Maybe someone put something on you. He's like, why? I've had it follow me for years. He's seen it for so long. He just thought it was just gonna be part of him for the rest of his life. We were freaking out. Why would this shadow follow you? And then come to the house. And someone see it in their dreams. It was just so creepy. It's so hard to even explain the feelings you feel when you see something like that. Then to have two other people see the same thing in two different places. I was scared, I want to say, for 6 months. I was scared to even look down the stairs because I was always worried that I was going to see a shadow, just that same shadow again. After that, I was like, I'm not going to look down those stairs anymore. What if I see something? I don't want to go through that again. But after those months had went by, everything was okay. Everything calmed down. No one saw the shadow again. It happened in the same house where we've seen stuff and heard things. On our cameras that we have around the house, we have them in the front, on both sides, and on the back of the house. We have a patio in the back of our house, and it's not covered, it's just a concrete patio. We have a real big bright light out there, so we can see everything, but we make sure there's no animals and stuff coming up. To the back of the house, my mom was like, oh, look at this video. You can see all these orbs flying around in the back of it. And I was like, Mom, you didn't see that. She was like, what are you talking about? See what I go, look on the shadow, and you can see. It looks like somebody's walking. You see the shadow of their legs, but you don't see nobody there. Looks like when you're walking on your driveway, and it's sunny, your shadow. All you see is your legs on the ground. That's exactly what we saw on the patio at nighttime. My tias and everybody, they're like, y'all's house is haunted. I don't think it's haunted, but there's stuff that's going on out here where we live. We catch a lot of weird things here. We're kind of like, it's whatever. We've seen it, you know. We've heard it pretty used to weird things going on. I told my mom if I see another shadow, then yeah, we're definitely out of here. Other than that, we're all used to it. Seeing the orbs on the cameras and everything like that. No one scared my kids. They're not scared to be here. At a house that we lived at before, I was 4 or 5, it was 98. 99, we had lived in another 2-story house. This one was real old. The house was built in the 40s or 50s. It had a kitchen, a big dining room, a den, and then you had your living room. 2 bedrooms, and upstairs 3. Small bedrooms up there. It was this old yellow house, as we always called it, the yellow house. At first, everything was fine. Then there was one night. My mom had heard this woman screeching or yelling. She had woke up. My daddy was like, oh, it's just a bottle outside. The wind's probably blowing on it. Just go to bed, it'll be okay. My mom went back to sleep. Some time had went by, my daddy was at work. He worked nights, and it was me. My mom and my sister, we were all laying in bed. I was asleep, and my mom's heard the loud screeching noise again, and she turned to my sister and was like, did you hear that? She goes, yeah, I heard it. She heard it again, but this time it was louder and even uglier than before. She grabbed me and ran out of the house, got her keys, and they went to my grandparents' house. They knocked on the door, and my grandma was like, Mia, what's going on? She goes, we heard something, Mom. In the house, I'm not going back home. She goes, well, you must have been in a hurry. You don't have your shoes on, or you have your purse. She left as she just grabbed the keys. We're trying to get out of there. My mom had told my Thea about it. My Thea was like, well, sister, you need to stand your ground. You need to pray. You need to fight it. Have a spiritual battle against this spirit. Let him know that this is your house, and they're not welcome here. They need to leave you and your family alone. My mama said, okay. She was asleep. We were all laying down. My daddy wasn't there. He was at work again. She heard that woman yell again, doing that screeching noise. My mom got up. She said a prayer for herself. She prayed over me and my sister. She was like, all right, we're gonna do this. We're gonna fight this. She had spirit, I don't know who you are, or what you want with me and my family. But you need to leave us alone. This is our house. You need to leave this house, and you're not gonna bother us. We are not scared of you. We are not leaving. We are protected by the blood of Jesus. My mom kept doing that. She kept saying it. She heard the lady's screeching get lower and lower, where finally it stopped completely. Some time had went by again. My daddy had woke up and he told my mom, "Do you hear that? I hear a woman yelling." She turned around and told my dad, "No, I don't hear anything. It's probably just a bottle outside, that the wind's blowing endlessly." But after my mom had prayed, we never heard that woman yell again. My mom got curious. She worked at a diner where a lot of older people would go in the morning. She started asking them if they knew anything about her house. They said, "The house used to be where a woman would have babies at, like a ward, and it had become a funeral parlor, where we would be sitting at watching TV in the den. That's where they would go in to view the bodies at." They were like, if you hear something in the house, it wouldn't be surprising to us, due to the fact that it used to be a hospital, where they would deliver babies, and then a funeral home. No telling what's probably attached to that house, or something that's not letting go for whatever reason. We were redoing the floor to figure out how old this house was. My dad had picked up a corner of the linoleum, and it was a newspaper under the floor. Like for base, we could read that. My dad actually had found an article about our house that we're living in that newspaper. I don't remember what it had said, but he told me and my sister, "This should tell you how old this house is, and no telling what's happened in this house. To see that there's newspaper under the floor that they've used in place of tarp. Stuff they put under for flooring, like for laminate. Our cousins, we all grew up real close together. There were always been the night at our house, but a lot of them have even said as well. They had heard things, the footsteps creaking, and my always thought was always just the old house. My dad would say, "It's just the old house, babe. Don't worry about it, it's probably just the floors." As I got older, I was like, all this to floors, why are the floors making noise? You could hear footsteps in that house as well. But not long after that, we ended up moving out of the house. My kind of feel is that whatever my family has done in the past, and things they've seen, I feel like sometimes we can see more of it, because we have more but understanding, or we see things. I've always believed that if we do a lot of bad, that we're gonna see things, or something's gonna happen, because that's what we were always taught. I've had an aunt way before I was born. She had been followed by the Latusas and everything. I had told my mom we've talked about it before. I go, I don't think we were followed by anything. I really believe that it was just the house. I said because every house that's an older house has a backstory that we don't know about, something that goes on in there that's happened that we have no idea. Some people don't even know what goes on. I said, so I'm sure things get attached in these houses. Or sometimes they're wanting help, or sometimes they're just bad spirits. And we're there, and they think that we're just bothering them. That's what happened with my grandpa and 2 of his cousins, where he had said that. 'Cause we were always told, like, see an owl. You don't cuss at it, like you leave it alone. You just keep walking, because you cuss at it, or you say anything, like they're gonna come and attack you. So anytime I see an owl, I'm just like, yeah, no, we're just gonna keep going. I believe that because my grandpa and our 2 cousins, when they were younger, they were going to a bar and they were walking and they saw this big owl. My grandpa was like, man, that's a lechucha, like passerella, like don't mess with it. His cousins started cussing at it in Spanish. They're like, well, you can stay out here and mess with it. We're gonna go inside. They went inside, and when they came back, his cousin was speed up. It looked like he had got into a fight. His shirt was tore up, and they asked him what happened. What was going on? We weren't even gone that long. He had said he had kept cussing at the lacusa, and it came flying towards him, and picked him up from his shirt, and was dropping him. After that, I was like, oh yeah, they're definitely real. I see an owl, I'm never cussing at it. I'm just gonna keep walking, act like I don't see it. Everything will be okay. As I reviewed many of the stories we did this year, there was one recurring entity that kept popping up. Shadow figures. What are they? Let me know your thoughts. Thank you very much for listening. See you soon.